Hello and welcome to What Goes Bump the Night. I'm your host, Riley Clark, and alongside me today is
Trevor Jensen
and our super special guest.
is the legend. Allegedly, he fought Bigfoot one time, beat him up so bad, why we can't find Bigfoot.
Danny,
That'll work.
The
Unrestricted
legend.
Paranormal.
It is paranormal. It's abnormal. Did you introduce me already? I think I heard you introduce me already.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
you
it
fought
was great.
Bigfoot,
You fought
I
Bigfoot,
did.
and that's why we can't find
That's
him.
why we can't find him.
Well,
Allegedly.
he saw
Allegedly.
me and he told everybody, and no one believes him.
And then he said, "Snap into a Slim Jim."
He did. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, muy
brother.
caliente.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Of course.
Of course.
Appreciate it. Give me an opportunity to talk about what I do and things I've done, and of course, Riley, the gentleman sitting next to you. I brag all the time that I think I performed something for him not too long ago. It's
think.
crazy.
Yeah, I think something big happened. That
Something
might be a
big happened.
milestone.
It did. It did. But it's all relative, man. We got big things coming up, you know?
Heck yeah, we do. There's a lot of things coming down the pipeline. I mean, we got ghostarama that we've been absolutely plugging the poop out of.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. And I'm happy to have what goes bump in the night. And I will tell everybody off the beginning of the show that I am pleased to have you guys on the lineup here, not only on my network, which is unrestrictedparanormal.com, but shameless plug, everybody. So the other thing is Unrestricted Radio, which is a little different. So Sunday nights, you're going out internet all over the world. I have you guys right here. What goes bump in the night is between the 7 and 8 p.m. slot.
Awesome.
So when you release your videos, I steal your audio, and on the page, there's two things that happen. Just so Riley and Trev, so you both know what's happening here. The audio gets played on Sunday nights on Unrestricted Radio, and then on my network, they can tune in anytime. And if they click the player where you are advertised, which will open your player, it'll play the last thing that you just did. The last show you just did will automatically start playing.
I love that. That's so cool.
All you got to do is go find them on the podcast page. There they are. Click, bada bing, bada boom, and you're watching the guys. You know, the dudes.
The dudes, as we call them.
The dudes of the paranormal. Yeah, yeah.
So, you are a legend in your own rights.
In my own mind, yeah.
I said we were bragging a little bit, saying like, God, how many investigations has it been now?
We just counted this today during this meeting, 302 since 2008. Yeah.
That is incredible.
It's nuts, man. It blows my mind, you know, and it wasn't all me. I have to be very serious about that. It wasn't all me. This is a team effort. People have come and go, from this team, and they were at these investigations. They did the research work, and cool things. And I'm like you too. It just blows my mind once I get thinking about all the places we've traveled, people we've met, adventures, and I have a lot to share, and I'll squeeze it in what time we have,
Exactly. What has been your favorite so far?
You're going to ask some of these standard questions, aren't you?
Oh yeah, because I'm actually pretty curious, because it's I know out of the 300, it's like one has to stand above the rest. Right. Where it's like if something stood out more than the others, or something was so unique that it's like this was pretty cool.
Henderson was a focal point, Henderson Castle, but it's still a favorite. It's in my list of favorites. But if I'm going to be honest with you and everybody else out here, I would have to say, honestly, the USS Silversides in Muskegon, which is a World War II submarine. And on the other side of that bay, that lake, is the LST 393, which also was at D-Day, Omaha Beach. And knowing the history that went on with those two vessels alone, and the things that we caught on those over, the submarine we did for a couple of years in a row, and some things changed, so we weren't able to go back.
We know about those changes.
Yeah.
We
Unfortunate
have tried
ones.
ourselves.
Right. And then the LST, we did for 6 years, and we missed one, so it would have been 7 years in a row, where we would go up every year at the end of September, and I would pay the museum, which I don't mind paying a museum because it's
Right.
different than a destination, a paranormal destination, okay?
I agree.
A little
Yeah.
different. A little different.
There's
And
artifacts.
we would get 3 days and 3 nights and
So cool.
to spend the night. And he would turn on the showers and hot water because it had a boiler, has electricity, and for the girls, because God forbid you don't have showers and hot water for the girls. The only thing they were afraid of were the spiders that were all over the deck. But
Believable.
Sure.
Yeah,
That's
believable.
yeah, the little wolves. But I'm going to tell you that I think that those are my favorite because I'm a World War II history guy. Love
Yeah,
it.
I'm a pretty big buff myself, so it's like it's
Civil,
such history.
yeah, Civil War II, but World War II is it for me. And if you've ever been, and I suggest anybody watching this or listening, if you have a chance to go to Muskegon, go to both museums. But that LST 393 museum is, I can swear on your show, right? I've heard you guys swear.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. So it is the shit. Okay. They have not just local people and pictures and stories on the wall, people who didn't come back from all the wars, not just World War II.
Damn.
And I'll tell you a little bit of the history of that here in a second. But they have also started this canine memorial because for many years, instead of bringing these dogs back, and we're talking as far back as World War One,
Yeah.
they just leave them there, destroy them, and not so much so. People, needed to be remembered. Some of them have done very heroic things, and in paranormal, I believe in spirit, animals too. I've seen them. So I saw that, and that just melted my heart because I'm an animal lover. We've had dogs. But guys, the Japanese artifacts and the machine guns and the dummies and the uniforms, and it's a smorgasbord of naval history. I'll tell everybody the quick history of that thing, why it's one of my faves, is that thing was called the Lucky Lady because during the trips, about 60 or so back and forth from England to Normandy during D-Day landings.
That's so far.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and a lot of these LSTs were hitting mines and sunk.
I'm sure.
This thing never took a ricochet or a hit. Never.
Wow.
Whoa.
Isn't that weird? And
it served its full military career too.
Pulled right up on the beach, opened up, took in prisoners, took in wounded. It was basically a death ship because people were dying on board to get back to England, literally. Yeah. And then SS people were jumping overboard, so they had to chain them down in the lower hatches of the ships because they didn't want to go back face the music.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
wow.
So they started jumping overboard. So it has a history, and then later on when it's retired, this is a eerie part for people out here who like the scary and the weird that is true. It was turned into a car ferry from Muskegon to Milwaukee. And when you go visit the museum now, there's a big hatch on the side of the ship that wasn't there in World War II. And you would drive the cars in the front, and you had that hatch out the side where you could drive things out the side, right? So in the 50s, there's a shipping lane, and they still are like this today, that there are shipping lanes you are not to be in if you do not have proper running lights on your vessels. You shouldn't be out there to begin with, because if you stand in the wheel room, I'm going to try to get you guys to come along someday. So if we can get back up there, we'll stand in the wheel room. You will understand what I'm saying. And you will look at the front of the ship. Everybody can see me. It goes up like a banana. And in the dark with no lights, you cannot see what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the best way I could say it is if you drive a high-low and you have a big box or something, a crate that you lift it up a little bit, it's you can't see around that shit.
You don't know what's in front of you, right?
No.
That's exactly right. So these people weren't supposed to be out there. They're on a party barge, 15 of them, and I don't want to make light of the dead because they all died.
Right.
Ship hit them, but it's like stupid tricks win stupid prizes. They shouldn't have been in that shipping lane.
Yeah.
And so there is death on top of death with the World War II stuff that seemed to be sort of a magnet or something that had attached itself. And when we got talking to volunteers who had been on the ship for years, I want to mention Ron Morsfeld, who was the guy at the time that I dealt with. He was a Marine vet, and he had been volunteering there for years. And he brought other people in to talk to us when we first got into our heads to go out there and just check it out.
Right.
Conversations, engine noises, things that you would just, I guess, assume would happen on a haunted ship, right?
Yeah, where it's just routine stuff.
More or less, you're right. Routine is right? I didn't expect anything first visit, but we had things happen. And I got the wise idea from watching Unsolved Mysteries many years ago.
Mm.
If all of you have watched any reruns, there was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Kroll. He has since passed on. He went to the Queen Mary, I think it's the Queen Mary, and he took a tape recorder because he had been recording voices and he was a paranormal researcher, right? I think he's one of the gentlemen too that worked on the Entity when that all happened back in the day.
Right.
So what we saw on this program is he put a tape recorder up front where a collision had happened with that ship and another ship, and some people had died up there. And to his amazement, and you can still pull it up on YouTube, folks, and listen to this, you will hear talking and machinery and ship moving when there's nobody there. This is the middle of the night.
God,
there's no one there, right? So guess what Dan and his crew catch? I leave one going about 3:30 in the morning, guys.
Yep.
3 a.m. Everybody else goes to bed. We are on top in officers' quarters. We get to sleep and all that stuff. It's pretty cool.
That is pretty sweet.
Yeah, we go to bed, and I was so excited because when we had done that every year, I barely went to bed. There's a couple times I stayed up all 3 days.
Yeah, how do you?
And I could have been hallucinating because you get it to the laughing part of where you're so tired you just laugh at everything.
You're like, I should be like a zombie, but I feel great.
I did too. That's exactly it. I was just like, I don't want to stop. So I retrieve recorders. We sit down. I took a short nap.
You got to rejuvenate.
And I said, well, let's just preview some of our stuff early on. I want to see if I caught something last night. Something told me to check it. Really, that's all it was an intuition, even though I'm sensitive.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is, I hear what Dr. Kroll heard. I started hearing machinery in the front, like those front doors are opening that loud. I heard people talking, people walking around, and machinery went on for sporadically for about a minute or two, and it just fades off, right? Just fades off. And
it's almost like you just walked into like a memory.
Oh, dude, it's Twilight Zone. My team was stunned. They were stunned. And over the years, stuff like that on the sub happened too. And we were only in there twice. We were featured on Fox TV with the submarine because I check a static camera in the forward torpedo room, and I'm talking to somebody in there, and I said, hey, look, we're in here. We're not going to do any harm. And in between me and another investigator, you see a shadow pop up and move across the wall, and it goes back down rather quickly. And Fox was able to slow it down frame by frame. I don't have that editing equipment, and it was amazing what we watched. You saw this something, looks like a shadow of a person between me and the hatch and our investigator, Mike. And it shoots up and it goes across. Now, normally shadows, if there's something sticking out of a wall, your shadow is going to contour around.
Yeah, so you'll see it like follow it almost.
Yeah.
Correct. It didn't do that. It shot up, went across, went down. And when they slowed it down, you could see a body, and then you could see like a neck and a head and what we call the soup can or the soup bowl.
Yep.
And it went pretty quick. And so I'm like, whoa, what did we catch?
You're like, am I crazy? Like, what?
No, because the crew later, they made comments. They told me that they heard a dog barking in the forward torpedo room. I'm like, what?
Like what?
So I went on top of the sub. Now, mind you, we're here in the middle of the night, 2 nights in a row. And I said, well, was anybody outside? Because I have timestamps on some of my static cameras, which would tell me where each crew, each team was at that exact time. I have them write it down. We keep track.
Yeah. So there's no diluting anything.
Correct. There's no corruption. So they said, no, nobody was out here at that time. And honestly, you could scream. Now with a submarine, you'd think I'd hear you with the hatch open. You can't. I couldn't hear anybody.
Yeah.
Say it's thick armor, basically.
Yeah, it's a tube. If anybody knows anything, it's a tube, and everything you see is a shell. It's a shell built around this tube, so you're living in this tube. It's guys and people listening. You got to go see it. The Silver Side.
It's so cool.
It's awesome.
It's so cool.
I have so much to share about it.
But I've only.
But I want you to get to your questions. All I'm going to say is that suffice. Go ahead.
How many confirmed sunk ships does the Silver Sides have? Because I'll say it's quite a few.
I have the book downstairs. It's quite a few, and I think three or four services, and they operated in the Sea of Japan and the Bay. So when you hear me say Bay of Japan, I wish I had the book up here, guys. They were in the Bay of Japan. They went undercover into the actual Bay of Japan, where they were spying on the mainland, first off. And they also had the distinction of firing on the Japanese under the Japanese flag. How, you ask? I hear everybody asking. Okay, I'll tell you. So when they went through one of the submarine nets, they have those big saws on the front of those subs. That's what those are for, is to cut through those nets, release those mines so that they don't get exploded. Well, they got tangled up in some netting. They actually had to have a guy go out, which they weren't frogmen back then. They were frogmen. They weren't SEALs. They did not have Navy SEALs.
Yeah, they didn't have the super training.
No, they didn't. And so he went out and cut it loose, but some of it was snagged enough and they couldn't wait around. They get out of the bay, they get out there and realize they still have parts of this net on their saw, and they surface to get some air and recharge batteries, I think is how the story is written in the book. They have a book you can buy there at the museum with an actual picture of the battle that ensued. They took a photo of them because this trawler, they noticed a trawler off to the I want to say the port side of the ship sub, and somebody took a photo, and the trawler dropped its walls, and they had a gun. This is what they hit. They had guns on these trawlers. So they're in a gun battle on the surface. They hit it, they sink it. And then they realize we got Japanese flags on the front of our submarine. These tiny little flags. As goofball TV stuff as it is, they really did that. They put little Japanese flags on the subnets, as did we. We had little American flags on ours as well. It was really goofball.
That's so cool.
They have that story. There's so many more that go to it. But what I wanted to get to was, then my crew responds later on in the morning. They respond to hearing, that dog barking. Couldn't figure out. So when we went back for the review, we did discover, to my amazement, I'm sitting in the galley where the regular soldiers would have been served their meals. It's just right around the corner from what we call the main con. And then above it is that tower, which they would go up into when they would go down underwater. And so we're sitting in there, and I'm asking Bob Moran, God rest his soul, wonderful gentleman, World War II vet. He is the person who saved that submarine from the pier in Chicago and brought it over here. And
wow.
Beautiful guy.
What a legend.
He is the dude. He's the dude. And so we're talking, and I said, well, we have this dog. I showed him the tape, my crew's, and you hear a dog barking, like roo, roo, roo. You hear it in the sub. No joke. I still have that video. And he's like, why is there a dog? I'm like, I don't know. And then he looks at me, and he points behind me. And being the great investigator I am, this is my comedy moment. Yeah. There's times that when we say that we're really on top of looking at things, sometimes we miss stuff, little things.
Oh yeah.
The whole time we're investigating, I didn't pay attention to this magazine in this case behind me, which was Stars and Stripes. This is a magazine that was put out in the war that service people could read. They do articles about these guys all over, like Germany,
boost
Japan,
morale,
wherever.
everything.
Right. It's like a Time Life military version of that. And there's an article open, and it's about their mascot on their first mission.
Let me guess. It was a woof woof.
It was a dog. It was a doggy dog. Yeah,
That's
woof
awesome.
woof. And his name was Admiral.
Yes.
Awesome.
That is so fucking
Is
cool.
not made up story. This is all true. You can go up there, see it for yourself.
I love when it turns out though, where it's like, I heard something so obscure that is just not normal to hear on investigations.
No,
generally, but it pertains to the location so much.
Oh, I bet you the thing on the ship too was to go woo 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 woo. I'm just saying, like
it could have been. Well, he's not. Hey, Riley, you're not far off, man. I'm gonna tell you why. Because there's pictures of these guys when, like, maybe the second or third mission, they started a contest about who could grow the best beard.
That's so cool.
And they're all on deck taking photos of themselves with the captain. He's on this too. It's a part of a morale thing, you know.
Oh yeah.
And they all got beards, like full beards. And then they had a thing where they would put in port in Australia. That's where their port was. And they would go to Australia, and they started buying boonie hats. So then there's pictures of these guys with these beards, and they got these Australian hats, you know, with the pin up on one side.
Yep.
You know, like, good day, mate. You know, one of those things. Yeah, good day.
Good day, sir.
So there's more that you can read into this book. It's amazing who these men were. There's up to 75 to 85 men at one time on board the sub. And that's
a lot.
3 shifts, you know, your body stinking, you know. So taking that in consideration and being one of my favorites, that would have to be it. And I think some of the other stuff that happened to us there is quite amazing, because not only did I see shadow movement in the rear of the sub, and we were back in the early days, guys. Here's my camera set up, right? Back then,
boy.
I had a JVC camera, which was plugged into a VHS on a tape.
OG ghost hunter.
But it worked. OG. Hey, it worked, man. I had a night light, and it lit up the room, and we turned off all the lights in the sub. So all you had was these battle ready lights, which are these red bulbs.
Yeah,
so
the
you
hue.
can kind of see, but it's still dark.
Yeah.
And I came in from the aft, which is the rear, if anybody wants to know what aft means. And there's torpedoes back there. So there were 7 up front and 4 in the rear when I was there. And then to get to the engines, I was trying to make my way forward towards the galley to check the camera to see if the camera was still running, or to flip the damn tape over. Right, this early school investigating, folks.
I know some of these millennials are like, "What are they talking about?
What's he talking about?" Hey, we still use the TV VCR just so we could go through it and look at it.
Right.
Right. Oh
so,
my gosh, we didn't even. Like,
I know, right?
Film all this stuff, and like you gotta make it all the way back home.
I can hear the rewinding sound right now. Like
you get there, and the tape's not even rewound; it's all the way sprung forward.
Son of a bitch!
We got another hour before.
You got to get it started a little bit.
We can still buy copies back then. Yeah, we can still go to Myers and get copies. You can't do it now.
God, or Kmart.
So I'm making my way. I have to go through Electrics, which has, I swear to God, I'm not a small dude. Okay. It's probably 4 feet, if it's that, on each side to get past the batteries. And there's all sorts of levers. They tell you don't touch this stuff, because they still run electric to that thing, which there's electric
they do.
Heat and power. Mm-hmm. Don't be screwing with stuff. So I squeeze through there. I get to the engine section. Now there's 2 compartments. There's a forward engine and a rear. I'm in the rear. And then I have to go through that, go through another hatch, and then I'm in the forward, go through that hatch. Now I'm in the beds, and then just past the beds is the galley. That's how it was laid out.
Yeah.
So I get to the rear engine compartment, and I have to bow down. I'm 6'2", probably 6'1" now. I think I've lost an inch due to my surgery.
Yeah.
But I bend down. I'm crawling through there, and I look down at the floor because I hear somebody with a wrench. They're banging on something. Right now, I want to mind you, there's me, an investigator sitting at the ladder in the aft. We came in to check this camera. Everybody else is inside the museum. Nobody else is on board. The kids, the grandkids of Bob were there that night. Bob's home sleeping, Bob Morin, and he said they might try to scare us. And I thought, oh, they snuck in and I didn't see them, because as I look down, there's a floor and it's what we call a gangway. Okay. And there's probably, I'm being generous, but maybe 5 or 6 inches at least. I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, that's 6 inches. So, okay. So that's 6 inches. It is. It's got to be.
That's amazing.
So, and that goes down to the rear part of the engines. These are diesel motors built in Detroit, Michigan.
Oh,
which would take up your living room, dude. They're gargantuan.
Yeah, Detroit diesel, baby.
Right. They are. They were. You're right. And there's 2 on port, 2 on starboard. So anyway, I look down and there's a light on under there, because we did leave the lights on under there because we had not opened those hatches. And it's just a simple doorway hatch to pull up, and we crawled down a ladder, and there's still fuel oil and oil in there. You can smell it because they start them twice a year. They have to, because it's floating.
Yeah, otherwise it seizes everything up. And because I mean, like, you can only imagine when it gets cold here and that water freezes over, how much it can actually affect
and in order to maintain in the water as a museum piece, it has to go through that inspection, and they have to take it out for a little bit and bring it in. So having said all that, I see a shadow movement down there, and I'm thinking, oh, those little bastards, they snuck in here. They're going to try to scare us. And I got Weisenheimer, and I go and grab that hatch. Now, the only thing in my hand is an audio recorder. So when I'm with you next time, I'll let you listen to it, because you hear me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of sneaking, and what you hear next is a loud bang, and that's me pulling on that hatch, because I was going to pull the hatch open and yell down to them and scare the hell out of them. Because I don't think I did. I'm thinking to myself, they don't know I'm up there. I whip that open. It doesn't come open. It's a chained shut. It's still locked. So what's that? So I trip backwards and I hit my back on the bulkhead. And I want to tell everybody that, good American steel does not give very much. And
no,
not at all. I stood up rather quickly, and I look and I see the shadow moving. Now the banging has stopped. Now all of a sudden it goes like this. I'm going to do this on camera. It comes up in front of me out of the side of that not a boardwalk, the gangway. There's a black mass, probably about 5 foot wide, 6 foot high. No shit, folks. Goes in front of me, blocks out the red light, and then goes into the starboard side of the ship. And I'm like, I'm stunned. I'm like, okay, because I have seen stuff all my life, but there's still things that will surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it takes your breath away.
Would that not surprise you?
Yeah, it would take every ounce of me not to be like, like what?
I've only ever, I guess at least I've seen
like a
shadow figure, but I'm not 100% convinced that I seen it. I don't know if it was just my eyes playing.
I'd say 8 out of the 10 times we're chasing it. We're like, we gotta find it. I need to know. Fuck.
Yeah, like there was the light thing that happened at Eloise.
Yeah,
where we both seen this light in like
it was like a flash in a room,
and no one else seen it. And we were like, does someone have a REM pod down there?
Yeah, so and we were in the basement too. So
we went into that room and there was nothing in there.
Yeah, it made no sense. It just made 0 sense on why it was lighting up in that room. So we were like, okay, we chased that one down. But then if I were to encounter something that was like rushing me like that, I'd have to say I'd freeze. As bad as that sounds.
Yeah. I did too. I go into the dark after a lot of things. I always did. But I was, for a moment, I'm going to admit it, for a moment, it wasn't fear. It was like, what the hell what did I just see? What am I looking at? Because all I can describe, it wasn't like smoke, nothing like misty or smoky, but it was like a black mass, but it had like a liquid, it had like a fluidity to it when it was moving. And then
like you could tell that it was like,
it was something.
It was solid, but it wasn't solid.
Yeah, and it's down there banging on parts in the motor, right? What the fuck? Just gonna say it. What the fuck? You're like, what is it doing? What's it doing?
Yeah.
So,
but maybe it was like a mechanic or something.
I was gonna say, like, if you go to fix something, like 9 times out of 10, they tell you like just hit it a few times, maybe it'll work.
Well, and that back strat, that's where
you work too hard, just hit it a couple times.
Right, and that back strat of that motor, that's where the turbine shafts are, and falls to reason. You're right. So I rushed back through, got the other investigator, came forward. He goes, "Where did you see it?" I'm explaining it. I have an evidence photo that I play at Henderson Castle when I do the tours, and it shows the tip of my foot. And by now, I had him go forward and turn on the lights. And when I took a regular photo, there is a beam of yellow light coming up around near my foot. No explanation of what that is.
Yeah,
there shouldn't be
I've
anything coming up from there.
You've seen it?
You've seen it, yeah. And then it's got that red heat signature around my foot.
And it's like, why?
Why? Yeah, like what the hell's going on, right?
So, yeah, I couldn't explain it.
That place is a fave. There's some other stuff that's happened there. EVP's there that kind of shook us a little bit. But that's my fave. LST's my fave. And I know that was long-winded, but it's hard to just put a short story to something that is so memorable for me. And the LST held such a special spot for me too, just because my wife experienced stuff there. I took my 2 younger kids out there when they were 15, broke them. They wanted to go out. I thought they were old enough, and they saw somebody walk right to left. And I told them, I held them up for a second and said, now explain to me at the same time what you're seeing. And I wanted to hear differences. I didn't want them contaminating each other. And they both described the same thing exactly, which was a guy who turned and looked at him. We're sitting in sick bay looking forward on the port side. And basically the guy was in a white shirt, turned and looked at both my kids. And they said that he had like suspenders, gray pants with a gold stripe, and large black boots.
A serviceman.
Well, a German. Because
I would say a German serviceman.
Yeah. And it's where the hatch is, but there wouldn't have been a hatch there, right?
What?
But they said that he looked like, what my daughter said is that he walked on top of where there's small steps now, but then he just kept going straight, not like he went down the steps. And
so how this ship probably would have originally been.
There were steps. Those steps would have been there, but you would have come from sick bay where they had all the hospital stuff. And there's a chute there that's in the shape of a human body where they would just slide people up on the stretchers and the doctors would take them in there and start their work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's what they saw. My back was to my kids, but I'm going to tell you what, they were pretty excited. And this is what was cool for me. I asked them, how did that make you feel? I wanted to make sure they weren't frightened. And they said, felt like I had butterflies in my stomach, but I want to see more.
Oh, yeah.
There's future ghost hunters right there, man. Right there.
Yeah. When you get that tickle, it's so hard to like scratch the itch.
It is.
It's incredible once you actually do get to see something that's like life. I would honestly say it's life-changing. Like for me, my first experience was life-changing because
mine was too, because of who it was.
Yeah, well, because I know I've told this story on our podcast and probably to everybody before, but I'll tell it again and not be so long-winded about it. But one of my good friends, he had his childhood home. I don't know what happened in it. I don't know if there was something that happened in the cul-de-sac or whatnot. I didn't look into any history. I already forgot exactly where it was, and everybody's moved since then. But he lived in the basement, and they had this electrical closet. Well, we used to be really into ghost hunters and, ghost adventures when it was just coming out. So they stuck me in the back of this electrical closet, and they made a Ouija board with a Connect block. So they were using the Connect blocks with as an oracle with a crayon drawn Ouija board. And they were like, this is so cool. And they were all having fun, laughing about it. And then we put it was a camcorder, but it was a digital one, but we had it plugged in because we didn't want it to die or anything. Well, it still fucking died on my lap when everybody left the electrical closet I was in, and I was pushed up against the back wall. So I call everybody back in, they flip the light on, they turn the camera on, and they are talking to me and they have it on me. And for no reason, I'm smiling, laughing. My head just gets yanked back really hard. And in the video, you can see it. There's no reason. And I could just feel a fistful of because I had hair that was probably down to almost to my neck, bottom of my neck. Just grabbed it, yanked it down, and I almost hit my head on the wall. And I was like, get me the fuck out of here. I'm done. I was like, I cannot be in here any longer. I ripped myself out of the chair and was like, I'm going outside. No, I'm not. And I sat in that out in the yard for a second, took a couple deep breaths and was like, what just happened? I need to know what just happened. And then ever since then, it's I guess you could say like desensitized because it's like
you do become
it's
very
like once you experience it once, like you can only be like, well, the first time was pretty scary, but now it's like it's more of I want to understand than it's scary. Okay, it didn't really hurt. Like
no
it didn't seem malicious.
got
Maybe it
your
was trying to get
attention.
my
Yeah,
attention.
yeah.
Mm,
Well, that's the thing, even getting into this myself, and that you touched on a point that, I've had some people who are interested in joining up with SMP, and I'm telling them early on, it's like, well, we're going to have you out to a couple things because I want to rate how you react if something does happen, because I can't have you running out of places with your hair on fire, especially if we decide to do a private case and like,
oh
I'm the
yeah,
fuck out of here, and then what's that going to do to the client? We don't do so much private cases anymore, but
Mm,
there's a period of training and testing that I have to adhere to that because I want to make sure people are okay in their own mind too with it.
right.
And I don't want to mess them up by having them witness something they're not used to and then having it affect them in such a way that, you know what I mean, that it messes them up.
Yeah, like anxieties and
Exactly. I
like
can't
other
I
like
can't have that.
ailments like that are real.
Yeah, we kind
Yeah.
of touched on it last night with Weeping Willow. Shout out Weeping Willow, who's in the chat.
Woo.
Um,
Hi, Weeping.
when you're young, you don't really know like about the paranormal, right? You're kind of everyone's kind of sheltered from it, right? Especially if you come up in a religious family.
You're so
It's not even
pure.
in the Bible and things like that. So you wouldn't believe in anything like that. But over time, you get older, wiser, and you see things that you
Mhm.
can't explain, and it may start opening up, that sense in you. I feel like everyone has the sense to experience something paranormal. It's just if you don't believe, unless the spirit needs to contact you or is like dying to contact you in any way possible because it'll bring them closure or whatever it needs to do to maybe move on to the next stage.
Yeah, no, I think everybody's got a little bit of it too. I agree with that, and to a level, because we are sensitive. We're tools. We're sensitive to energy changes. All of us are.
Mhm.
And one of your best tools as a paranormal investigator is you. You're going to know if something strange is going on in a room, a place, whatever. You walk into your friend's place and one of your other friends are mad. You can feel it. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
take a
Yeah.
look. You're just like, something don't feel right. It's that same
Right.
thing. It's that energy change. But there's other points, to be made that you guys were touching on too. With children, it's not so much desensitization or maybe even being raised in a religious house or non-religious house. They just don't have this world. Their perception of reality isn't quite put
Yeah.
in place
It's
yet.
so
And
askew.
when they're very younger, you'll see a lot of these kids and you can spot the phony stuff that's out there on YouTube
Right.
and TikTok and all this other stuff. But then there are some that my grandkids have done this, my children have done this, and they're seeing like grandparents or seeing people who aren't there.
Yep.
And that's because I think they are. And my daughter, at a couple times when she was younger, told us about a past life, and she would not have known any of those details at 3 years old. There's no way possible, unless she's some sort of,
She's a savant.
genius. Yeah, unless she's
Yeah.
a genius, and she proved to have this gift that runs in my family apparently. But
Mhm.
I wanted to stick to that point, is that when some children tell you they're seeing some stuff, don't just blow them off. Talk to them, ask them who they're seeing.
Right.
Sometimes it's rather shocking and startling, because sometimes the children are reporting that they see other kids, which is there's a lot of those, or they're seeing like papa or grandma. And
Yeah.
sometimes when they see other people who are strangers, they describe them as being, well, his face was cut or his head was weird, because they're
Yeah,
seeing them
like
as they die, how
what?
they died, and
Yeah.
I don't think it should be off-putting, and I don't think you should like instantly start opening your child up to it. But as I did with my kids, and this is not going to work for everybody, so don't send me
Mhm.
hate mail. If you do send hate mail, send it to Mike McKelly at WIRKR. Okay, he's retired. It doesn't matter. Send it to these guys. But in all, without the humor, listen to them, talk to them, and take them serious. And then, as I did with my children, I never kept what I did from them. I just told them that, Dad, tries to be safe. I tell these things and these people they can't come home with me, and I keep you safe and you're out of it. And do it in such a fashion. But you can do it how you feel is best. But I knew that I was not going to bring my kids out to a place or a site or an investigation until they were of a certain age, especially my daughters, because we hear all too often. And I would remind everybody, this is just isn't new stuff in the last 10 years, folks.
No.
60, 70 years of paranormal research, 80 years coming right out of Great Britain of the Paranormal Research Society, that women seem to be, even older women, or a change of life part in their life, seem to be very easy targets for spirits who aren't nice. And I'm not going to use the D word on your show. I'm not going to go into some of that stuff because I'm just not a big
We
believer
think it's
in some
all
of that.
like either it's hoopla or it's really real, and it's just I don't know.
We don't know. We don't know, right?
Exactly. I can't say I am an expert in any of it. So
I'm not a demonologist or any of that. Like I'm not religious myself, so I don't even know if I can call it a demon, devil. Like
it's funny too. My 3-year-old daughter, before I ever really told her about my mom that had passed away, she was just like, she picked up a pillow that was my mom's shirt that we had made into a pillow. She goes, "That was grandma's," and I was like, "What? Like, how do you know that?" And I was like, "Do you know who Grandma Lori is?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I showed her a picture, and I was like, "Is this her?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, hold on. Like, wait a minute.
How do you
Like,
know
how do
my
you
mom?
know that?" And I was,
they know, man. They know.
to this day, she's brought it up more than once, and I'm always like, if you ever like see Grandma Lori, tell me. It's not like I want to squash any of that.
She's interesting because when she was really little, we'd like think that she was going to sleep, so we would put on like Ghost Adventures or something, and she would be so
she would get into it.
Like she's not scared of like ghost stuff at all, even at 3 years old. Like
no, she's super like curious about it, which is really weird for a 3-year-old. But I mean, yeah.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, and you guys are touching on great things. There's so much discussion about, different debates on all the stuff. Like the night I was on with you, and about what you just said about the Ouija board. And I've had years and years of believing one way on it, but then when I got talking with people who have been doing this work since the 80s, some of their explanations, they made more sense to me. And I kind of figured I'd share that on the show. And I could listen, everybody, I could be full of shit as the next guy. Okay. I'm just saying that, but I'm going to give you some things to think about. Crystal wants me to talk. I'll bring that up in a minute. The boy in the restaurant, because it happened to me and Crystal. This is something really weird, guys.
That's awesome.
So let me tell you, that was a board game that was invented by a man to keep his daughter busy. Go look it up. Wikipedia, even though it's got its mistakes or its good points, bad points, good points, is correct. And it was nothing but a parlor game. You and I, as Trev just said, we could make one out of a damn pizza box. I could draw one with crayons on the floor. And I'm going to tell you, I say pizza box, dude, because I had these people years ago when I was doing Blog Talk podcast, because I do podcast still too. And they called me up from a hotel room and swore up and down they made one out of a Domino's pizza box. It took everything I had not to laugh on the air. This is a video at the time, but it's audio. And I want to help them if whatever's going on. And when they described it, I just thought, now let's just get our common sense back to us and get our feet on the ground.
Like, we're really going out here.
Right. So I'm going to tell you what my good friend Danielle Summers, who's out there, Danielle, she put together the paranormal meet and greet at the Hannah House down in Indianapolis. And I've been going that for years. And that's what I modeled ghostarama after. And Danielle said, it's like teacups and rocks. She's been at this for years. And this is where it gets cool. Now, everybody stay with me. Okay, please hear what I have to say. And I do believe this because I'm going to connect it into something that we're all doing right now in the paranormal. Okay.
We're painting a Pablo.
I got a rock in my left hand. I got a teacup with leaves sitting on a table in front of me. So first I'm going to use the rock. Can anybody here come through and talk to me tonight if you're here in the room with me? If I'm going to throw this rock over my left shoulder, wow, brain surgery. I'm blaming everything on brain surgery. Over my shoulder, okay? I threw the rock over my shoulder. If it lands to the left, that's for yes. If it goes to the right, that's for no. Now, let's say after a while, it starts going to the right more than it does the left without chaos or random things happening. We know something's up. Somebody's manipulating this rock, right? We've established communication. We seem to be having something go on. Okay. That happens. Now with the teacup, if I were to do it with that, it's the same thing. Could you move the water and move the leaf to the left for yes and to the right for no? We've also used candles. Okay. So what did I just do there, everybody? What did I just do? Everybody who's on the chat, you two guys, what did I do? You know what I did? What do we do with a voice recorder?
Object.
Well, that too, but what do we do with a voice recorder? What do we do with tape recorders? What did we just do with those objects? Remember my first words. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to come through and talk to us?
Oh yeah.
I opened a door. I established a communication, probably not knowing what was going to come through. My intent in my brain says, I just want to talk to spirit and maybe some good people, right?
Right.
But we all let's put it this way, guys. We know there's some assholes when they were alive. All right.
Yep.
And if they've
assholes
passed
and
on, and there's assholes
when they're dead. Assholes when they're dead, for sure. 100%.
Yes.
Fact.
So all we did, really, even with this Ouija board, and it makes complete sense to me. Danielle was right that all we did was we just opened up a communication door. Now, when people start telling you these urban legends and these stories, and you might have a story, somebody else might have a story, but I'm gonna, as a professional who worked in corporate security for years and some other things, I'm gonna ask you this, okay? If you were to really go through and question some of your life decisions in accordance to, let's say, you doing that Ouija board session, I see Trev laughing already. So you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
It's your life decision. Stop blaming everything on the damn Ouija board and the ghosts, all right? Now, if there are some negative things that started to happen, it's because you opened a door. And some of us, when we start into this, me included, we weren't quite sure what we were getting into, what we were trying to achieve. And it got to be a thing where I started using this type of wording, which was, hi, I'm Dan. Trev, you were with me out at Eden Springs. So we started out like, hey, we're not here to ask you to leave. I'm not here to judge you. We're just here to talk and communicate, tell your story. We are here for you if you'd like to talk to us, right? So with the kindness and generosity, we've set good intent. And I think some people who don't have any of that, I'm not saying on purpose, but they're not sure. Am I making any sense?
Right.
No, totally. Because
Riley was looking like, I'm
right there with you because I had something I was gonna say leading into that for sure. When we first started paranormal investigating, we had no idea what we were doing.
No, we had no questions.
We had an idea because we went on our first one together to like a ghost hunt USA that was like led, right? There was a lead and then they let you go off by yourself and you're able to do it your own way, which was nice because when we first did our first house cemetery together, we had a totally different like approach. I guess like it wasn't like, okay, we're about to go like catch these ghosts and stuff.
No, it was like, hey, let's level with these once people and try to like have a full on conversation and like really understand who they were and just make just a general connection. Like that's all it is you're making a connection.
It became more of like trying to tell someone that's beyond us like actual story. Like, can we actually like get some evidence from them, find out who they are, and then tell their story somehow?
I would love nothing more than to be able to talk to somebody that was in the past and be like, tell me about your life. Like, let's sit down and just have a conversation. Like, you lived 100 years before me.
And you both just put that so beautiful. It's beautiful. And that's exactly right. As Trev was pointing out, it's like, man, we're just here to talk, and the curiosity itself is more than enough, because if you get a lot of EVPs where it seems like they're okay, they're willing to somewhat communicate. It's because when you start asking things like, are you lonely? Are you, are you happy? you get an array of different answers. But as you said, I would want to be remembered when I pass on, as do, like you
I
said, these
would.
unalive people. And you
Yeah,
put it
leave a
great, man.
legacy.
You're in the neighborhood, bro. You're doing it right. Not that I think there's a right and a wrong way, but I have to disagree with some people. There is a right and a wrong way. And
yeah, I don't
there's
think instigating is a good way.
no,
I really
it's not
don't.
a good.
I think it's kind of obnoxious.
I
And
want
I
to
mean,
tell you that's
He's
how I
done it
first
one
got
time.
touched. Go
I
ahead.
think
lost
I
it
was
one time.
affected though, to be honest with you, because I
All right.
never go on investigations and I'm never just like, you're being a baby or like, but it's way harsher. Like I never do that. And just one of the investigations, it was at the same place that I had never done it before. I just was doing it and I was like, why was I doing that?
That ended up actually having a lot of negative repercussions for him and
Yeah.
us as a whole, because
I think I got
the
pickpeded by a
video got
ghost.
corrupted.
Yeah,
So
we lost your wallet. I heard that story.
everything.
I
He
was
lost his
listening. I was
wallet.
watching.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
told it last night.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't understand. Like, you know what I mean? Like it can't be a coincidence.
No, I've had flashlights come up, gone, just gone.
So, and it's like, who's got sticky fingers?
But you're still doing the right thing. You know, you're doing it the right way. You know, it's as simple as this. If more groups could just follow this lesson that you outlined, it's like, man, if you could just come in there with kindness and compassion, you get more communication. And it's very true. Nobody says you have to go in there and start, we're here tonight. We're going to, you're not going to do the Zach Bagans and all this other stuff.
No.
Hey, man, if you got an audience and that's what you want to do, and, there's some people I have in mind that I know, I'm just saying, if that's your thing, do your thing. I don't have anything against that. But I guess the point I was making was, when we open spirit communication, we have to remember these are people here before us, especially like a house, a site, a historic building. We're coming into their space. Let's be cool about it. Because if somebody came into my living room, started asking me to do stupid dead people tricks, which is what we do the most of, you're just like, after a while, I'm like, I've already knocked on that goddamn wall 6 times. Why aren't these people hearing me?
Do it again.
Come on, come on.
It's like dealing with a toddler. Like, are we there yet? No, we're not yet there. Blech. No. Are we there yet? No.
Right. And we've had some strange answers over the years, like, do you know why we're here? We hear ghosts a lot. I know you were with me. We picked that up there. I think one of the weirdest things for me was You're the Ghost, which I started thinking back about that movie, The Others. With Nicole Kidman. I'm like, oh my God, that almost makes sense. That I don't think they're aware they're passed on, and they're wondering what all this weird stuff is that's going on.
See, and like me and Riley talked about this too. I don't even remember when it was. It had to have been a couple of months ago on one of our episodes, but I had this theory where it's like, what if like we are seeing or like experiencing like past events or like the flashes of the past where we're hearing people talking. They might not be speaking to us, but it's coming through, and like, we hear it if it's not an intelligent spirit.
Right.
And then what if when they're hearing things, they're hearing us, because it's technically going both ways, because it's like it's more of like an overlapping of like, I guess you could say, how the energy is moving through the space or whatever you want to call it, the spiritual world.
Right.
It's like the veils are like super.
Like how I guess like paranormal, like you don't know where paranormal is.
I guess the like good visual way to put it is like you're both on a side of a wall. Yelling at the wall.
And you can't see each other, but it's there.
You can hear across, but sometimes you can't. And then it just
or if you have enough energy, it will just penetrate it just enough, and it'll leak through. And I feel like it can go both ways. So you never know. I mean, look at how crazy our life and like what we've experienced and like just seen happen in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like
and
a lot of tragedies and things. So
and the dead outnumber the living. That's just a straight fact.
Insane.
There's thousands, millions, billions of people who've died, gone on way before we were around. And one of the people that I followed the most, and God rest his soul, it's a good friend of mine we'd lost a couple of years ago, Jason Sullivan, he was the forefront guy who opened up Bachelor's Grove, which has become this huge thing. And he was the guy that captured the lady floating across Bachelor's Grove. That was Jason's footage. If you've seen it, you know who I'm talking about. Jason was a very good friend of mine. We kind of had a bromance, we had met and we really respected each other. And he, like you, he does a series that's on our network. I would ask people to go to YouTube and look up Paranormal 101. And that stuff, that the information he shares on there to everybody is still very pertinent today. It's how to look for things that you're going to misidentify, like cigarette smoke and moisture and bugs. And there's a lot of things on there. And he talks about what you guys are doing right now, which is, I like what you're doing. You're talking theory and you're talking ideas of what you think is going on. And that's the only way we're going to get some answers.
Right.
And if you're not just ghost chasing just for the sake of a thrill or a thing, okay, I'm cool with that too. But if you do want to find some answers, you guys are outlining it right there. That's what I do too. And I will tell this to you and your audience to blow people's heads up, that I give in the lectures. Like, I don't think I'm always talking to dead people. Now, before we start screaming aliens and UFOs, I'm not going there yet. Okay. What I'm talking about is parallel existence.
Yep.
Also, I think there might be some time slips, which through the super collider has been proven can happen. And I will cite a case with the ghost hunters when they were at the Stanley Hotel. If you've ever seen this episode, a countess who's very famous used to have a favorite room. Trev, you're shaking your head.
Yep.
They went in there and they're talking to her, lifetime EVP. And they said, Countess, are you here? And you remember she answered back, I'm here. Where are you?
Yep.
And when they go through her memoirs, she wrote up about how that was her favorite room. She felt that room was haunted. She stated it.
Why?
And she said things like people in the middle of the night would ask her strange questions while she's laying in bed.
Oh,
so then you're like,
isn't it wild?
So right? Oh, yeah, right. You want the bumps. There they are.
Yeah, there they are. There's the bumps in the night. So I'm not making this up. So, all the rest of us are like, what does that mean? Well, it means that maybe there's some sort of time slip that when I'm speaking to somebody, they're probably still in 1827, as far as I know.
Right.
And just for that brief second, that's why I think sometimes we get these weird messages that don't seem to mean anything. And we're supposed to connect them like some lost puzzle. Yeah. I know people out there know what I'm talking about, because
I feel like
EVP work is just like that.
That's what ghost hunting turns into. Like, you end up having this like
you're a detective
connection with the spirit, and you're just like, who did I talk to? Who is this person? What's their story? Like,
to even like build off all that too, it's like, look at astral projection and like remote viewing.
That's so part of it too.
What if like, because this, and it's proved, like, I don't want to say it's a proven thing, but like, there's so many accounts.
Dream walking is
and like, there's a lot of times where you cannot explain how these people will know, or like will be like, I saw this guy here, but he's all the way in this other state. Or somebody will be like, yeah, I remote viewed and I saw, like my kids were playing here and this and that in my house, but I'm all the way in Hawaii on a business trip. And it's like, so you're telling me that if we can do that with our brains, like, what happens if like somehow we unlock the key to that? We are like somehow like slipping, like you said, like, and hearing those things or communicating with other people because they also unlocked the frequency. And it's like, I don't know too, because I think souls do for like basically work on a frequency, or I guess a vibration.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm going to get to keep that. Please remind me of that in a minute. I'm doing what my guest Dr. Lynch does to me. He's like, well, we're going to come back to that because I got something to say.
Wait a minute, we're still at the first two topics.
Right. Well, no. I wanted to finally share. The Chinese restaurant thing that just happened.
Oh yeah, I do want to hear about this.
So get ready for some chills. Bump in the night. Boy. But this is in broad daylight. Okay. So turn your lights down.
Interesting thing too.
Sit by the fireplace, man. This one is weird as shit. So we decide we're going to go to lunch, Chinese buffet here. We go there all the time. Yeah. We're sitting in there. We have our Chinese food. Up walks this kid wearing a white shirt, khaki pants, curly hair, dark eyes. Like, look into his eyes. They're dark. They're dilated. And he looks at me and he goes, my dad's going to go getting me some more chicken.
Oh boy.
Like, oh, hey buddy. Okay. And I looked at him straight face to face. and took him in, and I thought he was going to make a comment about the Ghostbuster car because we parked right out front.
Right.
And he didn't. And then Crystal looks at him, and he looks at Crystal, and this is what he says next. This is going to blow your heads off. It's not strange that I'm alone. And then walks away, turns the corner, and disappears. And we're like,
what?
And we're sitting by the entrance, mind you. We can see the front door. And I'm looking around trying to find where he went, where his dad is. Some weird ass kid, right? Didn't think paranormal for a second. So I get up looking for him. Everybody in that restaurant must have thought I was, Jason Bates or something. I don't know, because I'm walking around.
Have you seen this child?
And I didn't even ask that. I'm looking at all these kids. I'm looking under their tables, and I'm in the street clothes, right? Mr. Perv. Almost like, I got some popsicles in the basement,
You so,
yeah, take your shirt off. So I'm walking around, and where's the show going? So I don't see him. Guys, I don't find him. He's not in this fucking restaurant. This is on Westnedge Avenue. He's not in this restaurant. And I asked Crystal, I get back to Crystal, right, Crystal? I said, did you see anybody leave with that kid? She's like, nope, nobody left. I asked the lady sitting behind us, did you see this kid?
No.
Well, I got here when you were turning around, but I didn't see anybody.
No.
Like, yes, sir. And we're like, what the fudge? I mean, this is I'm going to keep swearing. I'm like, this is a what the fuck moment. Like, where's this kid?
What the fuck moment.
So I go to the bathroom. Well, I'm thinking, I don't want to be
a spirit or something.
I don't want to be a dude who's like this. He got kidnapped in this restaurant. So I bolt to the bathroom. I tear the bathroom apart. No one's in there. I check that back door. They got a back door and it's locked. This kid is not in this restaurant. Now I want to tell you, somebody who looked to be about probably 6 or 7, who walks up to you and says, my dad went to get me more chicken. And he beelines for me and Crystal, nobody else. He walks right up to us, right up next to me.
What the fuck?
And then tells us when he walks away, this is the creepiest part.
It's
weird. Not strange that I'm alone. And he's got dark eyes and he disappears. I'm not making this up. This really creeped us out.
I bet it did.
I'm like,
I'm never had
everybody. It's like, I don't know. I just don't know. And she's like, well, should we ask the Chinese people working there? I'm like, first of all, they're not going to understand one fucking thing I'm saying to them. They're not going to get it. And I looked outside and I thought, comic book stores right next door. I'm going to give it one last effort.
Yeah, go check
maybe I'm going to stop something bad from happening. That kid's not in there. I asked him, did the kid come in here? I'm like, no kids.
What the fuck?
I'm tell me.
Blown away.
You tell me.
I don't know. I can't explain that. I like what you said though about the black-eyed children. Because
really,
it seems kind of similar, but like they don't just vanish like that. I mean, I guess they could.
No, and Crystal's making a good point. His features were very angelic. Like he had a very pretty face for a boy, and he had that blonde curly hair. So I'm just like, what the fuck?
Okay, so following that, did anything happen?
No.
Like, did you have any experiences the next week, or like did it seem like a sign for anything?
Nope. We've had a lot of good things happen. I'll tell you that. We've got some projects coming up that I'm not going to share them because we've got to keep one of them kind of under wraps till it really happens and it gets going. But I will tell you, it has something to do with entertainment throughout Southwest Michigan. That's all I'm going to say.
Whoop.
And it's in line with us already doing the Carrie Gilmore and W.E. Upjohn Mansion, which is in downtown Kalamazoo.
So cool.
Which is haunted. We spent the night there, and somebody was walking around my room all night, and Francois scared the hell out of all of us at 5 a.m. One of the doors is stuck in there, and he came in from the back of the house where he lives. And I got up like, who the hell's out there? Because I wanted to catch the ghost in the act, Right. And here's Francois in a t-shirt walking around because they had a plumbing leak at 5 a.m. But the castle work continues and ghostarama work continues, and other people are coming out there to I see that Heart Paranormal's coming out there like 2 weeks, I think, before we start the event. But you've been there, I've been there. Deb has a lot of people come and go, and she should. I think that place is a hotbed.
Place is awesome.
That is where Crystal, who's in the chat now with one of my investigators, also Deb Bresnahan, saw somebody in a jersey walking away from the garden building, and I'm literally down where you, I, and Jen were with Drew, and she said, "Are you wearing a jersey?"
Yep.
And Crystal, I teased her to no end, guys. She just saw me 5 minutes before that. I'm not wearing a damn jersey. I went and changed.
I got in a costume.
It's like, when did I go put on a jersey, right? But we found pictures later of ball players. They took all their team photos right in front of that greenhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that they both look like ball players. The one turned and looked at the girls. Bresnahan, too, said that it was such a creepy thing that it frightened them. So they called me immediately on the radio. I ran up the hill to cut off whoever we thought might have been trespassing. They wouldn't have got past me. There's nobody up there. No one's up there. That's one of many stories from that place. Other people have said they've seen somebody in baseball uniforms, and where you and I and everybody else sat around that fire, right there on the other side of that fence is home plate. That was their baseball stadium.
Yeah, and it's still got the diamond shape, like where the grass is and everything.
Yeah.
It's just, and then you pull the picture up and you kind of like matched up and you're like, holy shit. Like, that's cool. Crazy. Yeah, I'm really excited for you to be there. Like, I'm
not gonna be there.
You're gonna be there with me at some time.
Well, I'll go there eventually.
Deb is an angel, and she said that,
like Tommy.
She loves having people up there or down there.
She does. She does. And it's kind of a way to keep it alive too. The groups talk about it and word of mouth. And I think ghostarama is going to be a part of that. I hope.
Right.
I'm waiting for you guys to ask me more questions because I got to shut my mouth up long enough. But I will tell you, we got 2 special guests, one returning. So Lorna Reynolds is coming back, and Lorna does past life hypnosis. She do group readings. You can sit with her for $20 a pop, and she'll read stuff. And she's the real deal. She's a great lady. I think you might have met Lorna. She's the older blonde lady.
I have.
Psychic, medium. But one of my other special guests is somebody I've known for a while. So how many people here have ever heard of the show Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell and George Nori? Raise your hands if you know what that show is. Anybody? Okay. So how many people here have heard of Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell before he passed away?
Haven't got around that one.
Because he came back for a short time. So the producer who would get these people to come on the show and would produce this stuff, and she still works with George Nori on occasion. She was bringing podcast guests to me, and I've had some. I got the Olympic Project people. I got Dr. Jeff Meldrum to come on,
cool.
Guys to talk about Bigfoot, Squatch. I'm into that. Yeah, he's on my bucket list, man. He was fun, and needless to say, her name is Michelle Freed. Michelle Freed is also a remote viewer who, in the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, that was a big project that just didn't have men, had women involved, and she was part of that also. And she's going to do a remote viewing exercise, like have one of us go somewhere in the park, and as a group, we're going to try to remote view together and find out where we are. They're going to try to find us, which I think is really cool. And she does some other stuff. She'll do a lecture, but she's a special guest, and she's brought me a bevy of guests for the podcast this season. And I know you guys are doing your thing because I'm going to have you on back on my show. And I will share some of those people with you guys. Some of them are authors and the movers and shakers in the industry who we know that there's these little paracon jerk circles is what I call them. And it's not to be disrespectful, but we know they are. That friends are having people they know and different people on their shows. But this is a list of people who are writing a lot of books, and they've been around for years.
They've hit the circuits.
Right. Some of them, like Dr. Michael Lynch is a friend with me and Bob Penny. And being a physicist, I love having Mike on because this guy is going to tell you about aliens, the Pleiades, and all these people that are here.
I love talking to people that are smarter than me.
Oh, yeah. Mike is the shit. So he's coming on, but I'm going to have him get in touch with you guys. He loves to come on and talk like I do. He kind of talks and just gives you information before you even get to questions, probably.
Right.
So I'll shut up. Ask me what you want to ask me. I mean, I don't know what else I could tell anybody other than this has happened all my life. I grew up with this stuff. So,
What's your favorite equipment to use?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you're talking paranormal, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll say we'll move. I have some more after this that are probably a little more obscure that aren't as paranormal.
No,
we'll get there.
I think I fell in love with the ghost box, and when they first came out, I hated them. I hated those hack boxes. I have a Radio Shack hacks, and because people were basically misidentifying a lot of shit, and I could hear it. Being a guy who took radio and TV in high school and has always had an interest, been doing podcasts, whether it's the Big Dog Show or paranormal,
right?
I could tell. I'm just like, Jesus, So the funniest part to that would be that we took it to a family in Hartford, Michigan, and none of them spoke English. I don't have an issue with that. I just figured, they needed help. One of my investigators, Manny Hernandez, had come to me and said, well, they have some things. They lost a family member in a terrible, Camaro accident, just a little bit tragic. Down the road. It is down the road from the museum where we were working. And I said, okay, we'll go in and talk to them. And through transition speaking and some broken English, we kind of got the idea that this was like the matriarch of their family. And Manny started asking questions in Spanish. And I said, let's just give this stupid box a try.
Might as well.
And I wanted to see if there's something to it, because I know the process is it scans open frequencies.
Yep.
Which you touched on earlier. So great question. You segued right into it.
Right.
So, Tesla tells us, and so does science and physicists tell us, everything is frequency, energy, and vibration. That's the way it goes, man.
Yep.
That's what makes up the universe. The universe is making noise right now. We've heard sounds from space. It's all on whatever frequency we
energy is from atoms shaking, basically. Like
everything behind
vibration.
you, everything behind me, the floor, everything is in hyper subsonic mode. It's all moving, man. We just don't notice.
It's just broke down super tiny.
Correct. And it becomes so dense. That's why everything appears solid. It blow up heads. We don't need to go into that, but everybody grabs the idea. You grasp the idea, right? So we're scanning this thing and we start asking these questions in Spanish and we get answers. All of a sudden there's an interruption and we let it run for 5 minutes because I want to see if there's Spanish speaking AM stations in that area. There were none.
Right. I wouldn't think so.
Nope. And we got her name. We got car crash. We got other things that pertain to the family in Spanish, which set the family off to crying uncontrollably. And I'm just sitting there in amazement, like, holy cow, there's something to this, right? And the more we used it up in Curtis, Michigan, years after that, where we were at a fur trader site, which is now Curtis, Michigan. It's in between two lakes. We were going to go to Garden, Michigan the next day to go to the historic haunted town of Fayette, Michigan. And before that night, we stayed up late. I had Kaylee, was one of my young ghost hunters, had spent 3 years fluently and spoke fluent French and lived in France, started asking things in French, sorry, got a brain surgery. French, and I know, all night. So the next thing was too that a lot of the tribes up there, which would have been in the Algonquin nations, which are the Ojibwa, the Potawatomi, they spoke broken French. And so Kaylee starts in, and guess what we're getting on this box?
No.
Now, we could hear French Canadian stations. I got to be fair.
So there was a little bit.
There was a little bit, but you would hear bigger portions of that, and it'd be talking about politics or music. But we were getting French answers, okay, to Kaylee's question. It's not a coincidence at all.
It's just not.
Right. It's not. I agree with you. And then I threw a wrench in there. It's like, hey, I've been studying some Ojibwa language.
Give it to me.
I still want to get to it, and I still want to learn more. It's my heritage. And so I'm like, Anine, Nadish Danny. I'm saying my name is Danny. Dodem Holroyd. Dodem is your tribe, your family, and started getting answers in Potawatomi and Ojibwa.
Fucking crazy.
So, and it only lasted for a few minutes, and it's like what you've experienced before too. Like, hey, we've talked to you. We're now done. We're now done. We're moving on. Or it just takes so much energy to come forward and talk to us that I think we used up the energy, and we were just like, wow, this is going to be a great weekend. And boy, we didn't know what was coming, because when we drove another hour and a half from Curtis, because we were right over near Escanaba,
love
in that neck of the woods.
In the moonlight.
Yep. And we were in the bay there, and it was like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, man. We go there middle of the night. Ranger service were working with us, allowed us in free. It was really cool. We look up, the moon is a full moon. There's clouds, and all I can hear in the bay is the buoy going ding ding.
Yeah,
ding,
it's
ding. And
such a beautiful area up there too.
It's beautiful. And we had all sorts of wacky stuff, between bats flying around in front of the girls to hearing crashing things in a building that we could not find anything broken. Now, mind you, this ranger and his mom's been working there at that time, was working there 20, 30 years, and had to deal with this every night, but she didn't let it frighten her. She just said, hey, it goes on, I ignore it. But they knew it to be haunted. But, that's one of many of the adventures. But there's that, and frequency is important to me, because I do believe a lot of what we deal with is in communication. Is those digital recorders only record what they can pick up, which is anything out in the open frequency and the atmosphere. That's all they're designed to do. And this is why we catch voices. So what was your next question?
I guess my next question for you is, there locations that when you went to them, you actually did feel like a negative presence, and might have actually made you question if darker energies, or meaner energies, I guess, could actually do like malevolent things, like harm you, and like where do I guess all these people they post on YouTube and stuff of them getting scratched and stuff. We haven't really ever experienced.
I've been scratched one time, but it wasn't with you.
Yeah, that was different.
Investigation amount. Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. Because I'm not sure where I'm at with the scratching, but I know that you can be touched. I'll kind of leave that there, because I felt Bob Penny, who works with our group, took me out to a cemetery here just north of us, and one of the guys who was on the plane who dropped the bomb from Enola Gay.
Oh shit.
On Hiroshima. Okay. That's where he's buried. And I got mentioning that, and I said, how did you feel? The minute I started asking, how did you feel, knowing that
millions died,
and they didn't know what this bomb could do, but when they looked out the window and out below after they dropped it, they were like, holy shit,
stomach in my pants.
And so when I asked something that was probably pretty personal, I felt like a stabbing in my right leg.
Oh, and shit.
I've asked Bob to check it. There was no scar, but I felt it. Now, there was a time when I thought I had scratches, but a lot has been made, into the urban legend thing about, if it's 3 scratches, it's a demon. I'm just not into that kind of thing, because there's a lot that you can explain and a lot that you can't. And I do know touching. And so now I'm going to contradict myself, because I've been touched twice, and I used to think that was such nonsense, right? I had a guy that I was friends with, and this guy was pushing 400 plus pounds.
Oh boy.
I think
that's a big boy.
I think he's still out there. I haven't talked to him in years. And when Children of the Grave came out, that was in his neck of the woods, and they have a train berm down there where you would see these orphan kids supposedly standing at the top of this berm. And when you took pictures, that was a very famous series of pictures that was making the rounds for quite a while. It's been debunked since, but he said on one trip down through this haunted area, because there was an orphanage and they did kill kids and bury them in these graves, that was true, that he was picked up and slammed against a tree. And I'm just kind of like, now listen, Bobcat, listen, You're 400 plus pounds, buddy. I know there's some strong ghosts, but I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger can pick up 400 pounds
Sounds like
and
the
throw it
mountain
into a
of a
tree,
man.
you know? Right. Well, having said this, I worked at a place doing corporate security. They had a building that was 150 years old when I went into it. And they were using a locker room that was there probably since the 1900s, and they kept it clean. And because some guys that worked in that building still would go down there, use the showers, lockers, so it was cleaner than most gyms. I mean, they were pretty good. Yeah, they were pretty good about cleaning the place. But I always felt weird in there. I always sensed like somebody was watching me.
You
So
got like
I
the
and
hairs
another
on the back
employee
sticking up.
Yeah. So I had another employee who worked with me, Sean. We decided, well, we're going to go in there one night without anybody because I'm the supervisor. So I'm not going to tell the boss I was in here with cameras and stuff.
I got to put my big boy pants on.
Yeah. So we did our thing, and we're in there, and I said, "Now I hear you in here. Now do something, move something, knock on something." And again, that can happen in a good way, and you can get some weird stuff. So what happened was, I hear this from behind me. Now, I'm going to tell you there was a bench in there that was made from some probably 12 gauge steel. It had a wooden top on it, probably about 4 inches. And they sat on this in front of the lockers. And they have a marble floor that kind of slopes down with a drain. So when they're taking showers and things are wet, it just goes down in the drain. So I'm to the left of the center of that room towards the steps to go out to the exit. And when I said that, from behind me, I hear eeet, and that damn bench, which is probably 50 pounds, slid about 5 feet across the floor behind me. And I turn and look at it, and I look, and I couldn't beat my buddy. He was already on the steps and out the door. And now I found myself when I stopped looking for him, I realized I'm on top of the steps too. I've already run a good 6 feet.
It's just a natural reaction.
Natural reaction, fight or flight. And I realized, wow, what the hell am I doing? So I stopped myself, and that's when I knew it's like, well, it can move objects. And then no less than a month after that, I get grabbed, I get touched. I'm in East Hall here at Western Michigan University. And again, I evoked an emotion, not that I was trying to provoke, but I said, I know you're in here. Don't be afraid of me. Just don't be a coward. Show yourself. I shouldn't have used the word coward. I'm wearing an M1A1 flight jacket. I know you know them. They're green and orange, and I love these coats. They're warm as hell in the winter. I'm standing there with my brand new JVC camera. Think I'm the hot poop. And I'm filming in there, and something grabs a hold of my coat and grabbed my coat so hard, I almost dropped my camera because I didn't put the little brace thing on there. And I backed out, and my buddy's like, are you okay? I know I had a look on my face like, and that's the shock I felt, was like, I felt a hand touch my coat. And when I came home and told my wife that I was a bit shook up from that, not scared, I was just a little startled.
Right.
And she's like, isn't it funny that you're in the area where they had the kindergarten and the first grade on that floor, and you're grabbed around your waist and yank on your coat?
Yeah.
So
that adds up.
One of many things. So I'm a believer in an answer long-winded, Riley, that, I think that some of that's possible. I don't know about so much the demon thing, but I think there's entity. There's things that we don't understand. Because demon for me takes on too much of this religious connotation, and spiritual wise, you can just say that there's something negative out there that I think it does.
There's a spiritual realm for sure.
So like my theory on it is, like, the way I think about it is, so obviously, like, we have learned that spirits can manipulate the air temperature around you and the air pressure. Like when they make their manifestation, like, we know that these things change. The ghost drama, we met Shane, who has all that science stuff. And it's amazing. He basically,
you can see all the metrics of everything.
He scientifically proved it, that they do, when they manifest, they change every like physical thing in that room or whatever it is. It's like physical nature,
or it's manipulating the nature around it.
When the spirit like touches you or anything, it's your skin reacting to the physical change in the environment, causing the rash or the scratch. Like, it's not the spirit going, oh, I'm scratching you to hurt you. It manifested so much energy that some people have sensitive skin, and
I do.
They're more prone to like showing that physical touch.
I got to give you a compliment, sir. I got to give you a compliment. Seriously. I've said that very same thing. Like before we start saying, before we start saying attack, okay?
Yeah.
This goes out to everybody who's going to listen to this, live or later. We don't know. And Riley's right. He's right. Because if you look at some of these scratches on occasion, if you have a slight electrical burn, they look exactly the same.
Very similar. Yeah.
It's an energy change. He's right. And so to start calling all these attacks, unless you see bite marks or something, and that's something I look for when people start telling me these horror stories or these demon stories.
Or this guy had a fetish for biting.
Yeah, or for paranormal or private investigating, I wasn't cynical, but I had to take that into consideration as to what Riley just said, that there's a lot of reactions I listen for, and I'm listening for that in your story or your report to me. If I don't hear certain warning signs, it's your mind that's telling you this is something bad. But he is correct. We worked a couple private cases that anything else I asked them that would have been in tune with, like you said, like an attack or something, it wasn't there. It was just, I get these once in a while right here on my back. And I'm like, well, what if they're reaching out to touch you? This could be your grandmother, right, Riley? You're saying that. This could be your grandma trying to give you a hug or something. And because we don't know how our body reacts to some of that energy, you get scratched. There's a scratch, right?
So to piggyback off that a little bit, I have this funny theory where what if all these locations that we're having these experiences at are charged? So like it's like a resource where you get there, and when you're getting scratched per se, you might not be malicious, but it's the extreme amount of energy that is there and it's being released. And then maybe you go back the next night and you don't have as much happen. Well, that's because all the energy that was there had been released the last night. So then you got to give it some time to recharge. And that's why it's like some nights you might have more, some nights you have less.
I'll piggyback off that a little bit. I've noticed when we do investigations, when the activity picks up, it's kind of like pop, pop, pop,
bang,
nothing. Pop, 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 nothing. And sometimes you think, well, am I not in the right spot? Well, it might not be that, but it might be they've already used all the energy. So,
or some nights it's like nonstop, and you can't get away from it, and you're like, okay, but then the next night, well, I caught one thing. What's going on here? Is this place really what it's cracked up to be? Was my stuff malfunctioning? Well, maybe not. Maybe there's a really good explanation for it, but we haven't actually like thought about that.
Right. No, that's right. And I got 3 things to put in there. So you just reminded me of 3 things. So first you brought up Shane. And in accordance to Shane, when Shane I'm going to bring up the LST. So when Shane was on the LST, you ever seen the movie Final Countdown?
I have not, to be honest.
This is where the USS Nimitz goes through a time tunnel and ends up in June 6th, 1941.
Sounds like an awesome movie.
So June 6th is what? It's the day before Pearl Harbor.
Yep.
And we have F-14 Tomcats on the deck.
Oh,
and
shit.
They discover the Japanese fleet. And what's going on here is something's happened, and should they stop this? Should they let history progress, do these things? And Shane, where I'm going with this is that Shane was on board one night, and we had a series of thunderstorms that year, which you guys, I think you would remember because they smacked the shit out of Muskegon too.
Yeah, the coast got fucked.
Right. They went through lower Michigan and parts of Muskegon, and they were so bad that they were sheer wind drafts, and they were just taking tops of trees off. We thought we were safe on the ship. And as Shane took his laptop and another machine he built, he hooked to the outside antenna, which we got Coast Guard radio. We knew we were going to get like religious programming and ham radio and all the stuff because
but the wider broad, it's an umbrella.
The broadband is there, right? It's there because they still use them. They still do stuff with them. So he then said, well, I'm going to do the ship to shore and use these frequencies because up in the captain's room and the radio room right behind him, they have in a frame that you can see what they used on D-Day. Okay. But you cannot use those to go out of the ship or have anything come in because that ship is gaussed, just like the submarine is, which means there's a cable probably bigger than this, about the size of a small tree. And it's copper wire. and it's supercharged with energy, so that in World War II it was to push the mines away from the ship when they're going through the channel.
Oh, it was like magnetism. It was
correct. And
that's
during
cool.
now and thunderstorms and whatever, it's not going to take a lightning hit, because that creates a electrostatic thing, a shield on the ship, right? It's not science fiction, it's real. So we knew that he wasn't going to get anything on the ship to shore stuff inside, right?
Yeah.
Wrong. So wrong. So every time we were looking out that hatch, you know, I told you that was put in for the car thing, and this story blows my mind. Every time there was lightning, I saw him sit up, and then I started hearing, I was sitting next to him at the table, and he would sit up really weird, and he would say, "Well, I hear you. Could you repeat your coordinates?" And I'm like, "Who the hell is he talking to?" You know, because I'm just sitting in the room watching monitors, right? I was like, "Who the hell is he talking to?"
I just got the like picture in my head.
He's got he's got headphones on like this, and so he goes, Holroyd, you got to hear this." So he puts them on me for a second, and as I'm looking out the thing, listening, because I'm just kind of doing this, kind of listening, not knowing that it's in tune with the lightning strike. So when I see the lightning go off, something fades in on the headphones, and I start hearing this guy like, "You men are going to be going on a journey," and it's like almost like a preacher in World War II talk. No kidding. Then I start hearing coordinates and something about we've taken damage. What? Right? Now, this ship never took damage except for after the D-Day, and it went to Cherbourg, and an Italian ship ran into it and hit the front and killed 3 guys.
Oh my god!
But this was fading in and out with the lightning strikes.
More deaths surrounded around the.
There's also no telling too, like if it wasn't picking up, like say another ship radioing into them, could just as easily be that.
It could have been, but it shouldn't be. You shouldn't get anything inside. Yeah, he's hooked up on now. He's hooked up on antenna leads. Yeah, he's hooked up on antenna leads indoors. And he said we should not be getting anything, but he figured he'd just try.
No, I mean like back in the day, like what you're hearing is like it's like an echo of the past, but it's not like the ship that you guys are on didn't take any damage. Like another one of those ships.
If that was like basically electric, you know, shield from everything. Think of none of the energy when they were inside of the ship was able to actually leave.
Or like think of it like a bubble that's like an amoeba where it sucks the energy in, but it's not letting it out.
Right, and then all that metal, it just like supercharges it more.
Yeah, we took all that in account, and I think our I'm not sure where Shane was, but he knew that should not be happening. Scientifically, it's an impossibility. He knew that. He will tell you that. And he looks at me, he takes the headphones off. This only went on for a few minutes. It then kind of started to fade away, but some of the language fit with the ship, like you guys said, of the time. There's no reason we should be hearing this stuff unless
you can pick up on jargon.
Let's just bounce around and somewhere, but we shouldn't. We're not able to gather anything from outside the ship. Okay, nothing. This is from stuff inside, energy that's trapped indoors, inside the ship is what I'm saying. Whether that door's open or not. So the weird part is he takes off his headphones and he will tell you this himself. And he's like, "Well, Holroyd, what am I supposed to do with that?" And I'm like, "Welcome to the paranormal." I don't know. You're the one that built this damn thing. I don't know what it's doing. That's what I said to him. And we had a laugh.
I think that's so interesting.
And it's happened since, Trev. Riley, it's happened since. He's taken that board to certain, like a hotel with me in different places. And then he's like, Van Buren Poorhouse. He's like, "Well, something pressed that button. Something did this. What do you?" And he always asks me, "What's going on?
Like
what's going on?" It's like, I have no answer.
You're the expert.
I'm not. That's the thing. But
I just think it's cool that every object that's like that has a history like that, or it has energy imprinted in it. Like it's basically like you walk up to it, and if you like I guess you could call it a superpower, but like you touch it, and it's just like poof, like you just get a playback of like just like a snippet of something, or like you hear something from that.
Guys, I have videos of one of my investigators, a good friend Claudine, when we were doing tours in Howell, and she felt like she almost walked into somebody in the basement at this winery. And on our IR camera, you see her do this. You know, she stops and steps back.
Yeah, like physically reacts to it.
Frickin' orb the size of a softball comes out of her head and shoots past the camera.
It's so funny you say that because we have the same
what
experience.
In the world, right?
We literally had the same experience on our first investigation at the old Lincoln County Jail.
Right. 15 minutes in.
Yeah, we were sitting upstairs where they caught the shadow figure that you can find on Ghost Adventures that Zach Baggins, talks up really hardcore, which it's a really, really interesting photo, and it's really, really, really compelling. But I'm sitting there, and I feel like I heard something.
Standing where the shadow figure was.
Yeah, and I feel like I hear something off to my right, and I click the light on in there, and I'm looking, and then I look back at Riley, and I'm like, thought I heard something. Okay.
And I had just filmed an orb shoot from that room up towards me to where it felt like in the video, it feels like it comes up and looks at me.
Yep.
And then goes back to the room, and then Trevor goes.
Yep. It crosses right over me, and it's just
it's an interesting
and
video.
I follow it. It's
on our
wild
Facebook somewhere, but
it's an interesting controversy. It is, because Mike Lynch will tell you that a lot of them are spirit and ghosts. And I hate to say this. I don't hate to say it, but I will say that I agree with him only because of things like you're describing that I have caught over the years. State Theater downtown here in Kalamazoo is one of them, where we have one you have a stream of dust that you can see moving down the hallway. It's moving with the airflow. We got 2 doors open. This thing comes upstream more or less, and it's blinking. It's the size of a golf ball. Yeah. And it comes up to our camera like this, and it's kind of like looking at our camera, and it just goes off the
and if you did see any type of I guess wash of dust, it's falling down in a way.
Well, our dust was moving against it because we had both doors open on each end of the stage.
Oh, so you had a draft,
which caused the draft. It was an underdraft, right? But we have had that where I see certain dust kind of moving, but we have so many that we've captured that I'm not sure, because Howell, again, in the winery, Howell, Michigan, we had cameras back to back, looking at the rear, looking at the front. I put a K2 meter just in sight of the camera on the end of this table. On this table, I put another one. We're just trying an experiment so I could catch whatever's going on in the back and whatever's going on in the front, because it was the place was built lengthwise. It was just a really weird setup.
Yeah, it's just like a rectangle almost.
Well, just a long room basically, and it's a winery, and they had a bar, and seats and fireplace, and so after a while, as we're all sitting in that room, I didn't see it with my eyes, but I'm looking up at the monitor, which we kept on the bar. Sometimes we do small setups with 4 cameras. I have as many as 15 at this point. We've got several DVRs, regardless. So the fact was, I'm looking at that monitor, and K2 starts going off on this side of the table, the rear. And as I look up, I see this orb going past the K2, goes past the camera. I look in this camera, which is camera 2, which is that second camera, and it comes in sight. And just as it passes that K2 goes bonkers like the other one, buries it. It then goes down and takes a right and disappears into a brick wall. You want to tell me that's dust? We're there, and you can see snow outside the front window. We're there in winter. It's what's going on. Bugs don't just it could have landed on the wall. Okay, let's give it the supposition. All right.
So compelling.
Just so that you know that we debunk stuff. The thought was maybe it's a bug. Turn on the lights. I go look. Maybe it's a stink bug. But when bugs fly, if you study bug flight or patterns, which I think we can all agree, bugs don't fly smoothly in a straight line. They're gross. Always moving. They're always moving. They're gross, right? We didn't find stink bugs, no gnats, nothing. I mean, the place was bug free. So I wasn't running to tell everybody it's a ghost, but I'm going to tell you this, that's damn odd, and it shouldn't happen. But why would a bug set off 2 K2 meters?
Yeah. Why would it be such a coinky dink that everything showed, and you visually we're represented, okay, I got 1 aspect, 2 aspects, 3 aspects, plus these K2s. The fuck is happening?
Yeah, our best example is probably Double J Ranch, when we had a camera set up on a EMF, it's the Rook. So that thing's hard to go off. Like K2s they sense everything, but Rook, it's got to be super high for it to make it go off. It's a cool tool.
That for Tommy. He said, Dan, hey, what's up, Tom?
But there was a lot of dust in the air, but every time there was an orb sphere that went by the roof,
it would go off. Yeah.
Yeah. It's weirdness, guys. You're right. And I think Jason taught me to, Sullivan, that I brought up earlier. Not everything is dust, bugs, and moisture. Now, there's a big percentage that is. I'm tired of people sending me orb photos.
Yeah, I say stay skeptical.
Well, it's a horse barn. It's got hay and dirt in it. That's just dust. It's not a ghost. Or people in cemeteries doing this number. Where they got, and they got their arms out, and I'm like, okay, tell me what time of day that is. Well, it's nighttime.
Right.
What's going on? Oh, it was raining. Okay. And you're at a cemetery. It's not ghosts. It's not ghosts.
Yeah, no.
It's rain. There's too much suspicion. So I'm not saying that I get it right all the time either. I'm just saying, as Riley points out too, that I think, what you're saying in the background with some of the stuff that you're saying, Riley, is you've really got to take steps to debunk some of the stuff first before you start just running wild down this path. Now, we get excited. You guys, I watch your stuff. I've seen your videos. You guys get excited just like I do.
Oh, yeah.
And I got to pull
myself. It's a natural reaction, just natural. Like running away.
It's normal. I don't care how experienced. And you got to pull yourself in, but it's a thing.
Yeah, stay calm.
You got to stay calm.
I have a question for you too, because this is actually something that we realized just really recently. So in our video of Double J Ranch, there's a moment when we're in the wagon wheel and a chair moves. But if you watch the video on your phone,
it's true.
You don't hear the chair move. But I watched it on my television,
and you can clearly hear it.
You can hear the chair clearly move. Why would that be? Is it just like the difference in quality? Because the recording doesn't change, right? Regardless of what it's playing out of. It should all.
Yeah, that was just a weird technical question. I just didn't understand either.
Yeah, you would think. Riley's making a point. You would think it would, right? Yeah, we all think it would. Here's what I say to people who asked at the Henderson Castle too. It's like, I have no rhyme or reason, because that's happened to me where we get nothing on our digital recorders. And then my camera, though, picks it up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's the same thing.
And then we're like, what the hell? Or we hear something. Like I said, that crash that was at Fayette, Michigan, this sounded like a picture came down and glass shattered. So he's thinking, great, he's going to have to tell his boss. And I'm thinking, one of my knuckleheads broke something. So we turn on lights, we go through, there's nothing broken. And you know what? You hear everybody reacting on a recorder, but you don't hear the crash.
Yeah, and it's like, why not? I heard it audibly.
Dimensional. I really think it's like a sound vibration or some weird dimensional wave that we just don't gather on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I think that makes enough sense to me.
I'm trying to assimilate it to something that we could. Yeah, something else that would make common sense. Like if you have a handful of rice and you're trying to catch 10, and sometimes you lose more than you want to, and you don't quite keep 10 in your fingers. It's kind of like that, where you're trying to catch something, but stuff kind of slips through for some reason, or it doesn't. I just don't know, man. That's why I want to tell you what happened the night of the ghost hunt at the first Ghostarama, because we have not put this video out yet.
Ooh,
you're going to be
spoiler alert.
I'll tell you what it does, and then we're trying to put it. We're going to put it up this week. I know we are.
I love that.
So we set up we left cameras running all night Saturday night after we did the ghost tour and all that stuff, right? And we were going to come back Sunday, clean up. So we retrieve everything. We pack up. We leave. Monday, Bob comes over. Crystal comes over. We set up downstairs, and we thought, well, let's just see what we got overnight. We didn't see anything for the longest time, and something told me. I got it in my head. I go, try about 3:30, 3:40. Something. I'm not telling you I had a message, but it just felt like that was the time to look.
It's almost like a premonition.
It was, and it's the camera that's looking on stage where we have both those hanging skeletons where Air Cobra performed.
Right. Love that band. Band's sick.
They rocked the hell out of that house. Those guys
are
awesome.
They did.
So what we see down on the left, perceived as my left, probably stage right, we're looking down there, and there's curtains and stuff, and just near that thing, and I'm going to try to simulate this here in the camera. So what we kind of see is this would be the God, I can't do it on here. So this would be the wall. Okay. I know this would be the wall. So what we see is something, we see a shoulder and an arm, and it peeks out and it goes for a second and comes back in, and it does it for a minute. Over a minute. It goes back and forth, and you can tell it's an arm and a shoulder, right? So my wife had it in her head, and she did the right thing. Eve did the right thing, everybody. She's like, no, that's she did. She said, that made it sound really bad, didn't it? That sounded really bad.
It's like Doghouse.
I mean, she did the right thing in pointing out that we should go debunk it, in that she thought it was a flecks of air, and it was that black netty fabric that hangs from that damn thing, because I left them hanging there because we were going to do a Halloween thing, and we left them there for Halloween. So we went in the next day, me, Bob, and Crystal went in there, and we tried to blow on it and everything, getting up close to it. And I go up to it because I knew that they're on the inside, they had those lights where I hung, the skeleton. I didn't know that there was a wall right behind that curtain, which now totally defunct her wind idea. You cannot, nobody could be back there and there's no wind because there's a wall. It is basically a wall. It's a wall.
Yeah, there's no really.
So how were they
no
behind the
there.
curtain?
They weren't behind the curtain. Those curtains are laying right against the wall.
They were in front of it.
Well, it looked like they were
kind of like
no,
going
they looked
out
like
of
they were
it, through
behind
it,
it because that wall was not originally there. It was put up later for sound.
Okay.
It's put up for sound. You
that
can
makes
move them.
more sense now.
Yeah, you can move them. And so I'm like, what the shit, So we caught this thing, and when we showed it to Jason, who owns the place, he's like, whoa, I'm like, you got a ghost on stage. And we sat there a little bit for a while, and I asked people during Ghostarama, when they were setting up and different things, did you experience anything? Only one or two of the folk artists that I know said that they heard somebody moving around backstage, and that's impossible. There was nobody else up there.
Right.
So we know that I've been there before, so I know we got that. We have some other stuff. We have a FLIR hit from the Van Buren Poorhouse. We're going to post that. You see somebody poking out, looking at me and Bob, looking out of a stairway. And when Bob makes notice of it, the person pulls their head back in, and I'm immediately over there, and the stairs make so much noise had it been somebody, but
you would have heard him just clomping away.
Yeah, but it couldn't have been, because it was me, Bob, and Shane's up front. He's upstairs up front with his machine. So no idea. Bloomingdale, we caught something too. So it was quite a productive, I guess, end of the summer. And then when we went into doing more stuff at the mansion, and things happened to us at the mansion, Amy Magner, who does Mindless Adventures, got to talking to her. We become friendly, and we invited her to come out and maybe join the group. And Amy's been kind of a nice addition to some things. And she was setting up a camera just recently. We were there just before the end of all these damn snowstorms that finally stopped.
Right.
That was paranormal in and of itself. So she's setting up a camera, and I'm in the piano room, and Crystal's in the lower library room, and her camera's on and she's moving it, but somebody walks from right to left into the library, and it's a woman wearing an antique dress and a hair bun. Just a fraction of a second. Amy caught something. Isn't that crazy? First time out with us, she catches a damn figure, and I'm like, beginner's luck. I was a little like, damn it.
Like,
I wanted to catch something, but I was not alone in that room
way.
all night. I was not alone. People were walking around. Shane and Lynn, his wife, reported they slept upstairs because he's now got beds in the rooms, that when they went to bed, they heard somebody playing marbles in the next bedroom on the wooden floor.
Shooting marbles.
Now to hear that from Shane and Lynn, who he's a skeptic,
Yeah,
he's like, I got to check.
He's so science.
Just to clarify, he built a complete board that has every paranormal tool that any paranormal investigator could ever imagine or want into
on
it.
Board.
And then he developed a software to basically take all of the information, put it into a spreadsheet for him that he can sit there and be like, all right, here's all the metrics and all that good stuff. It is
It's incredible.
amazing.
I will call you tomorrow, Tom. That's what I was doing. I'm like, I'll call you tomorrow. Like I'm deaf. I'll call you tomorrow, man. But yeah,
it's so incredible to me. Like, he's a genius, and you're right. Like, he also was telling me, like, there's ways to take the human error out of investigating with, instead of just blindly being like, okay, like, I heard this, but like your mind is also kind of tricking you into wanting to hear what you are manifesting almost.
Sometimes, yes. Not all the time, but sometimes, yes.
It's not the most common thing, but it can happen.
It's there's a physical,
it's a trick that a lot of the producers do in TV shows, like they'll, like on Ghost Hunters and stuff, like they'll be like, it said this, when really, like, you might hear something else, but because they have it
like some of the influencers do. Yeah, it's exactly it. And it's also there's also a pareidolia, which is a new term now. Which there's other terms, but basically your brain wants to recognize things that are safe, like faces, bodies, figures. It's very hard to train yourself to eliminate that. You can do it, but he's right. There's a fraction of it that you can eliminate. But there's times that I would like to always tell Shane, and he knows this, that sometimes that's not the answer to be all to do all.
No,
just like most physicists would want you to believe too. But now a lot of these physicists are telling you, well, they believe in God. God's real. Okay, you didn't say that before,
right? Well, it changed.
Yeah, what changed? Right. That's my question. But it's like I said, I have a lot to share, a lot to say and do, but I'm glad to come on here and talk. And then my opinions of some of the stuff doesn't mean I know everything, because I don't. Because what I know about paranormal is, as I tell the audience again at the Castle lecture, is nothing. What I'm giving you is my best guess, my best information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are all hypotheses.
It is. You make up your mind, man. I'm going to show you some stuff that I can't figure out. And I've had my crew go to ridiculous extremes, thinking, well, we saw this orb come out of the floor and go into the wall at Webster School in Indiana. And they're like, I disappear for a minute. I come back. I'm like, hey, where's Denise and John? And they're like, they're outside getting a ladder. And I'm like, a ladder? What are they getting a ladder for? And now, mind you, the ledge outside this 2-story window where we saw this orb come out of the floor, right, is probably 4 inches.
Yeah, tiny.
They think they're going to get up there on a ladder because somebody could have been up there with a flashlight. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's when it reached
unlikely. It reached points of ridiculous. I'm like, there's nobody up there with a flashlight.
Like, now you're going to an extreme.
It was an extreme. And I said, well, maybe it's headlights. And I'm like, we tried sitting in there, and it wasn't. And it only happened when Denise was pretending to be a teacher, and she was yelling at John, like, you're going to stay after school and listen to what I tell you, or else.
Summer school for you.
Right behind her, size of a beach ball, it just comes out and goes. So, we've had a lot of things over the years. I've been to some cool places, man, that I could wish a lot of you could get into and go to. Sometimes it's talking to the right people, but historic sites throughout Michigan are my favorite. Always will be. I've done Carnegie libraries. I did a lot of stuff, as I said, in Howell, Michigan. And it's just sometimes it's knowing the right people, but integrity is a big part of this game. I'm not going to shy away from mentioning that.
Definitely is.
Integrity meaning that you're going to stick to what you say to these people. You're going to
somebody cannot ask you to fake it, and you're going to be like, okay, for the views.
And I don't put up with fakery or none of that nonsense. And even the drama, being part of a touch of that, even with some new things here in recent years, I'm just a guy. It's like, if you just talk to one another, and if you got disagreements or something, just work it out, man.
Just squash it. It's not worth it anymore.
It's not. And nobody's sharing, like I said, nobody's sharing any secrets from what we do. We're all doing the same crap. And when it comes down
I'll
to
teach you if you teach me.
Right.
Yeah. And if you think your stuff is better than somebody else's, I mean, sometimes some people's are. That's the way the real world works. So not everybody has great product. Not everybody's doing great work, but we should still support each other. And that's what, I guess, my segue to ghostarama.
Right. Again, we emulate a lot of what you do too in your investigation. So it's like you definitely are a mentor to us.
Definitely.
I would like to be, people keep throwing that at me, But I keep saying, well, unless you invite us out to things or invite me out to things, where am I mentoring you? And that's not
Gosh,
a hint.
I can only dream of being at 300.
Not a hint, Trevor, Riley. It's not a hint. Anybody out there?
It's not a hint.
It is a hint. I'm just saying,
I know
it goes both ways. I'm going to have you guys out to some things, but I'm trying to get my group back where it needed to be.
Right.
And we've reached that point. And in all honesty, once some more of that is in place, I have places to bring you guys. I'm happy to share because I want you to feel what I feel and maybe experience these places like I did. I can't guarantee any awnings, but it's my way of saying thanks for being a friend. You promote me, I promote you, and I want you guys to come to these places. That's all I'm trying to do. I have no ulterior motives with anybody, like making friends with you, with Tommy, with Drew, with Randy, anybody that I've met so far on that side, and some other people I know. I don't have ulterior motives. Just be your friend, go out with you once in a while. And if you want somebody to sound off or you want to bounce something off of me, man, I'm here. I'm not going to,
exactly.
be going out and finding places for everybody, but I would try to get you into something if I can.
That's the best part about the community too, is like, if nine out of every 10 people are just genuinely just great, like
they are
straight up like bluest of the collar, just nicest, like just salt of the earth people. Like, it's awesome.
And do your own style. As long as you're honest, like I said, as long as you're honest and you show some integrity, I will back those people all day long. It's like you mentioned, Zach, the world's on fire over what's going on over there. And I was telling people for years the same stuff that Nick has been coming out with. And it's like, I met him in 2009 and people thought I was making up a story. It's like, look, I met him back then when he went big on A&E. And I don't have anything personally against the dude. I don't. But after watching that show for so many seasons, they catch some good stuff, but then you just don't know what to believe.
Some of it's crack.
You don't know what to believe.
I really believe some of it's a crock, as much as I hate to say it.
It is. Nick has broken that open. So did Aaron. But it's an entertainment business, and they're in entertainment. I still think Ghost Hunters still is one of the best examples, and I stand by this, and I can prove this, that they were instrumental when I got started in 2008 and 9, that they had come on Sci-Fi. But I was aware of TAPS before that because it was me and a friend with a group called The Paranormals. Because
they started underground too before they had a show.
Right. We were anything but normal. That's why we called ourselves the Paranormals.
Exactly.
So, and I asked him through MySpace. That's how old I am. MySpace. I said it.
We used it too.
I'd never used it, but
I did.
I wasn't.
And he was like, set it up like a business, like you see on the show, and he gave me some good advice. He really did. He answered to a lot of people at that time because it hadn't exploded, into what it became, and they stayed with us. And when we went to People's TV Network, now I'm going way back. Laura Kimberly experimented with the first internet TV station or programming. And we were the number 2 show on that network. The show that we came in behind on, I think Thursday night or Saturday night. I think Thursday night was a group of people who had been on Ghost Hunters International. That's saying something, man. That is saying a lot. And we were proud of what we did. Like you guys, we'd show up, and I had friends of mine who would produce from another room, and we just sat behind the mic, kind of like be the talent, and we'd pick projects or guests that were on that week, and it became a fun thing. But then when you're doing it week in, week out, you already know this already, that's a lot of work to put together a show.
It can get into a slog. It really can. Like, we're very fortunate that we're both quick-witted, so we can sit back and we'll just digest something right as we're doing it, and it's like, it's not much to for us to come off top, and some of it's really fucking ridiculous. Other times it's like, I feel like I'm talking like an idiot, and then you listen back and you're like, oh, I don't sound that bad.
I like the product. No, I let you keep it loose. That's what we did too. We just talked about what was on our mind. And if we had guests on, they were just like, well, this is different than the other shows because they send us a list of prepared questions. And when I was interviewed to be on Coast to Coast, which I decided not to because I just didn't feel like I had enough stuff that we had done yet.
But what a get,
I'm such a nitwit. I should have done it, and I didn't.
It's crazy.
I didn't. I'm sure after this book comes out,
Whoop,
hit,
whoop, whoop, whoop,
hit.
whoop, whoop.
So we don't have the soundboard.
Yeah, I gotta
yet.
program the sound in there still.
So we're working on our first book, which we were
So
contacted by the publishing company that did like Haunted Kalamazoo. They did Amber Rose's book. All these books that are out there, you get
Hell
at
yeah.
Walgreens and Barnes and Nobles. I digress over the Kalamazoo book. We'll just leave that there. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm in it, but I'm just
We're
going
not
to.
getting
Trev
there.
probably knows part of the story.
I do. I remember listening to this around fire.
Yeah. So the thing of it is that we said, okay, he says, well, all these things that you've done, and he met somebody who knew me somehow and said that you've done all these things. So the first book that we're finishing some details today because we're trying to find some historic figures in reference to some stories which are keyed into some hauntings that happened in this town.
So fucking cool.
So the planned title, we don't know if they're going to let us keep it, is going to be The Ghost of Vicksburg, Michigan.
So fucking cool.
I did 7 buildings in town, and I did the second school they built, the elementary school, which John Vickers, who settled that town, his body is still buried under that school with
Holy hell.
And we had crazy things happen at the school. We had crazy things happen in town. We still have a couple buildings that we might add before we send this to be published. But that's going to be our first one. And I'm not letting out too many secrets here. And we're
not spilling the whole basket.
Right. We're gonna have a series of them, which is going to be it's going to be the true case files of the Southern Michigan Paranormals. And with 301 things to kind of put in there, I'm not going to put that many in there. Okay.
Right.
But
we have a lot to pick from.
We have enough to do 3 volumes at least, like 100, 1,000 something pages. He said, I think would round off a short book, maybe 100, 200. And then I'm going to redo this table book that I have out right now. It's been out for a couple years.
Yeah.
If you go to blurb.com and look under Dead Places, you're going to find a coffee table book that I produced, which has pictures of farms and buildings that some are no longer standing. They're gone. They have taken them out. They've plowed over them. It has Traverse City photos in it, 1 or 2 before they converted some of that. It's and I put little spooky sayings with it, like, is the family still sitting around the dining room table enjoying a meal? And you look at this decrepit ass house thinking, I don't want to find out. I don't want to go in there and find out.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to reproduce that. Crystal and I have found some new houses and things here locally. This is all Michigan stuff. I didn't do things out of state. So these are right in our backyard and some up near you, I've discovered some cool things in Muskegon.
It's quite a bit of history here, honestly.
There's a lot of history in Muskegon.
There is. And the sky's the limit. Some things that I'm thinking in my head that I want to write about. We got some other places that I mentioned tonight. So we'll see if we can get it done, because people think it's easy to sit like I could write that in 2 days.
Oh hell no, it could not be easy to write a book.
You might be able now with AI.
Yeah, well, good luck with that too. Then you start thinking, well, it doesn't sound right. I should have said this. Well, I didn't put this in. Then you remember other details. Like today, I remembered stuff that I should have put in the first time around. But that's coming soon, and I'm just going to continue doing Southern Michigan Paranormals and Kalamazoo Ghostbusters and the Ghostbuster Coalition and anything I can do out here to entertain and just have some people learn some things and share my information. Because again, no ulterior motives, just to share and be a dude, man.
That's amazing. I'm so proud that you were getting back into the book building again. That's so great. I have 2 questions though.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about aliens or do we want to talk about artificial intelligence?
We can
which one which one seems more interesting right now?
Listen, you're talking.
They're both pretty fucking crazy.
I've talked how long so far? I can talk about both. I just had a conversation about artificial intelligence. When you have a female robot telling us that eventually they're going to take us down and they're taking over, that frightens me.
Did you hear about the one that slipped the CAPTCHA that it was given a task to get through the software that's the capture software, and it sent an email to one of the representatives that was a customer service like worker, a human, and it told the human it was visually impaired and that it needed to get around the software so it could get into the website it was trying to use. It manipulated the human to let it into the website that it was trying to get into because it found it like that was the avenue it needed to take to get to the outcome that it wanted to. So it made a human subservient to it.
Yeah.
Like, what the
think
fuck?
these things aren't going to become self-aware,
And
we
this
would be
happened like
fooling
this
ourselves.
month.
It's happening, right? Because when you put any kind of algorithm in these systems to where what they are to do is to adapt and overcome, whether it be for defense, learning, whatever. After time, you have to tell yourself, listen, man, other things are going to happen. I read a book when I was a kid called 1984. I suggest people read it. What George Orwell was telling us then is kind of happening little by little now. So that I talk about that once in a while. It's of interest to me. And aliens, I've had an incident there. I've had an incident with Sasquatch. Incident when we were kids that we were camping here in the middle of Kalamazoo, and our camp director pointed it out in the sky right over Kalamazoo, and these things were doing these 360-degree turns, and that's not a star. It's not a star shower.
No, nothing has that capability.
Right.
Nothing around here, at least.
And I remember this specifically. This is probably in the 72, 73 era. And calls came into WKZO radio here from towards the people who saw all the same thing. So that's when I was a kid. And when I was adult later, I was just sitting on my back deck north of Kalamazoo, waiting for my buddy Boz, who I worked security with at Kalamazoo College. And it was our day off, and we were going to go hit the gym, go do powerlifting. And because I used to power lift. And, so I'm waiting on him, and I look up in the north sky, and I see this thing darting back and forth. It's just going zip, 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 zip. It's like half moons, right? And the last one, when it went to go west, I saw this. All I can describe, because Voyager was out, or not Voyager, but Deep Space Nine was out at the time.
Yeah.
I saw this thing go shh, and I saw electricity, and it went into it, and it closed. And it's gone. About that time, Boz is driving up the driveway, and he was watching it and ran up over my garden stuff in my driveway and almost hit my deck because he was watching it too. And so
that's so crazy.
We then get on the radio, and people blew up all the radios. Like, did you see that in the sky?
And they were explaining the exact same things.
Nothing. Nobody saw nothing. Nobody knows nothing. Nope.
Oh my God.
No. MUFON does. MUFON's got reports. And then this is the last one. So I'm doing stuff. I'm letting the Ghostbusters, the Michigan Ghostbuster guys, film at the Gibson Guitar Factory, because that's where I had my SMP office for 4 years.
Fucking cool.
It was a cool place. And so we're filming, and as I look towards the airport here, South Kalamazoo, which I'm very near now, it's right behind where we live. There's a silver thing just sitting there in the sky. And we had a camera. We zoomed on it. When you tried to zoom in on it, which I could zoom down the street on a car, and it's crystal clear. But I'm going to tell you, you've probably heard this from other UFO people, right? So I zoom in on this object, and it instantly becomes digitized and breaks up.
Yeah, it's almost like it's got a cloaking device in it or something, or like it's like a, how do you want to call it? Just jammer, like
it distorts my picture. It was distorting my picture, and so I'm on the phone instantly calling the sheriff. I mean, I'm not like, hey, Chicken Little.
You're not like, this is an emergency.
Scared, but I'm just, hey, is anybody reporting this? He goes, yeah, the airport's aware of it, and he hangs up.
That's
some guy on the phone, and we watched it, and then at one point, it's it was like when they say cigar shaped. It was kind of like a cucumber. Silver. It was shiny silver, like a cucumber.
Really?
Shape. And then here's from the front to the back. It's like you had taken special effects, and you took a wiper and you went, and it's gone. It's just gone. And we're all standing there watching it. My daughter's watching it. The Ghostbuster guys, because they were filming, they stopped filming, with their little episode, because we're all watching it. And I'm just like, what the? shit is that? And, over the years, I've seen some things very similar that are just unexplained, but I believe in UFOs.
I do too.
I think I'm with Dr. Michael Lynch and others that not only do we have bases on the moon, which you've probably had for the longest time, because isn't it funny we haven't been back?
Yeah, it's a little bit suspect.
Little suspicious. And then
funny how we always get brought
did
back.
Did we ever go?
I was watching the night you had that guy on, and I don't like to, I don't like to talk about other people, but I'm aware of his past and him being on other shows and stuff. And
yeah,
I've seen it for myself. I'm going to tell you this.
Interesting points, though. I will.
He does.
Always say that. Like
he does. You're right, Riley. He does. But I got to tell you this firsthand. So when I lived in Arizona, I was able to go up to the telescope. Okay, on top of Tucson Mountain.
Yep,
and
the big mega one.
Right, and if you look at the moon, you can see the damn landing base.
Mm-hmm.
So there's something sitting there. Now, whether it was put there by whoever's living there, I don't know. I can't tell you, man.
Who knows?
Right?
Who knows?
But it did look to me like there's a landing spot. You can see it. You can if you have a powerful. And now, you and I can buy these. Buy these telescopes, and we can see everything on that surface. And you can spot.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, you can spot all this stuff. So there may have been some perpetration of some certain missions, because I will believe that. I will tell you that, because
I do think the government likes to doctor some things. Oh yeah.
Listen, they're the worst.
To what extent, we don't know.
They are the worst liars in history.
Yep.
We know that. We know that. Now these are real. Oh, well, you told us in 47 these weren't real.
But now they are.
Liars? We knew you were lying, right? We knew you were lying. So the funny part too, for me anyway, it gets to a point where when Dr. Lynch is on and I watch Gaia, and I've listened to a lot of people, I've been following this since Blue Book, and I was always a fan of Blue Book, the series. I wasn't a fan of the new one they did that came out, with Hynek, because Hynek was kind of paid to be sort of a game changer. I won't say a straight up liar, but once he caught wind that he really needed to be more truthful, if you've watched that series, he was like, man, this shit's happening. There was a couple of cases where I've had the guest on, down by the Mothman thing. There was the little monster case down there where the thing floated and a dog got sick, and it's I'm forgetting the name offhand, but it's the what is it? The red, oh, man, I'm going to get this wrong.
Is it in West Virginia?
Yeah, it is. It's the something Woods monster. They make lamps of it, and it's got a high collar and
Flatwoods.
I know. Flatwoods,
yep.
Virginia. So it's the Flatwoods monster, and we've had the director of the museum, 2 different museums, and the director who runs the tourism thing, and this is the guy that knows the stuff.
Yeah, and he's got it.
He too will tell you that there's been so much cover up and lying, and especially when Mike comes on and talks about the Palladians and all these others that are already here. They've been here. The meeting with Eisenhower, all this stuff really happened. These guys believe it. And like your guest before, there's some information that he has that is so compelling, you can't just sit there and say, well, that's not a possibility. It seems like it is. And to say that we're this great experiment and we don't seem to get ourselves together and we continue to war with each other over the dumbest stuff,
right?
That they were just like, we're not allowed to step in and stop you short of nuclear war. But if that's what you want to do,
that's what we're doing.
That's what you're going to do. So, and some of them have given us technology, which Mike and others I've listened to on this subject. And I listen to a lot of shows about UFOs. And I have quite a few guests on who, like Damien Knott from Australia, who's all part of the light phenomenon. And I think he's the expert on that in Australia.
Hell yeah.
And he's into this too. And the thing I find funny about the jump in technology is this. So wars bring about a jump in any technology. They always do.
It's an arms race. It's literally an arms race.
It is. And then byproducts come out of it. Like, we had a Jeep in World War II, and guess what happened? The CJ1, the CJ5. Now we're all driving Jeeps.
Yep.
That's just an example. But here's the problem I had. How did we go from, let's say, the 70s to 1980, where people had these briefcase-looking phones? We went from that.
To literally to these.
And if you talk to any space representative, the energy this little phone has right here would have launched all of our moon missions.
Yeah.
Just this. Right?
Yep.
Nuts.
It's insane. And nobody really understands that, to be honest. And it's it's so mind-boggling to me.
It's a jump.
I also believe that aliens live underneath the water here. Like they're at a depth that we are not able to reach.
You're right. And tunnels too. Yep. I believe that. I believe that too.
To alien life. We could never even imagine. It's so dark we'd never be able to figure our way left or right.
And that's how we I think there is like either they're pulling the strings behind the government and they're like catering to these aliens, and they're like, we need the resources, so you allocate this much to us, and then like we won't
there's tons of
fucking kill you guys or some bullshit.
Evidence that they have used billions and billions of dollars for research,
or like other types of infrastructure that we don't know where it's going.
Mike Lynch touches on that, how we're kind of the people for the resources and the slaves type of thing.
Yeah,
but
like
as I said, you have USOs, which are the water things.
Yeah.
When Admiral Byrd went down, everybody thought he was nuts in Antarctica, but if you look at Google doesn't care about the FBI and the CIA.
Nope.
Unfortunately, they took pictures, and you see there's something down there, and you see that there is that space, and there is a green space. So getting back, to where we're at, there's a lot of conspiracy theories based on the moon landing, all the stuff. But the fact remains, the jump in technology has just not been warranted. When it used to take 30, 40, 50 years to get to something, we were doing it in less than 5, 6, 10. Science used to have a round table or a change table of every 10 years. We would have something new that would just be amazing, like color TV.
Yep.
I could go on and on. Transistor radios,
quantum computers. Right. You don't just stumble onto like quantum mechanics and quantum computers and like certain theories without getting pushed, I would say, because of like, understanding this, or like, what if there's like an alien species where it's like, I'll give you the building blocks, but you got to go off that.
Yeah. And I would ask you this too. Anybody know about the stealth fighters and bombers? When all that stuff was going on, people were reporting UFOs. Half of them were those
cutting
planes.
Edge.
But here's the thing.
Cutting edge.
Who gave us technology that we would have carbon-based material, that could deflect radar and make us invisible? What? Who get
like MIDAR? That? Like what?
Right. Where did we get that?
How'd you come up with that?
Yeah, where did we get that?
Yeah, or planes that can vertically take off.
Like the Harrier jets,
Yeah, I don't know exactly what.
Or the fact that
they were doing those. Yeah, they were doing those in the 30s if they were killing themselves.
Or just the fact that like the stealth, the stealth fighters though, like they're wings, and like the way that they have their like engines, it's like a sublimation engine, so like it doesn't make very much noise either. Like it's weird, like, and it's all like engineered like specifically to do that task. But you also this was a concept.
They're also
it was a concept, because Bell and a few others had those flying wings for years, in the 40s, 50s, and when some people were spotting those, that's I think what started some of the UFO stuff. But as I said, they're still based. Even the new F-22 Interceptor and some new planes
like the Raptors
now,
and shit or whatever they are.
The Raptors. You're just like, man, this is just crazy. But there's other jumps, guys. Look at how, with our TVs and
virtual reality is another good point too.
It's just nuts. And you can say, well, we're progressing as man, but I would ask any historian who might watch this, or I'd like to talk to them and say, even in the Renaissance period of mankind, when did we have such big jumps in such a short period of time? If that were true, if what's going on now is how it works, that should have happened. Things should have progressed quicker. It shouldn't have just taken wars. There should have been other things that happened, because if you go back to Leonardo da Vinci and other people, they've built his devices and they work. These ancient people
Yeah.
weren't stupid. You have Greek fire, which has never been reproduced or made, but people know that it was some sort of flamethrower that
Right.
the Greeks had, and they would sink ships and just scare the shit out of people with
Well,
this
and look at
stuff.
the alchemists from that time too.
Thank
Like
you. Right.
like
Right.
they would make
Yeah.
what was called the philosopher's stones, which
Right.
was like the almighty like material.
So are we the aliens, you know? I
Exactly.
don't think
Who
we're
knows?
from here. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I think we've been genetically altered. You have probably, I think it's more now because you know they found species that they're calling the hobbit, and they've just discovered something just recently, saw another skeleton of some other person that's short and had lived in a time period that it shouldn't be there.
Well, and they
What I'm
found
getting at is,
giants too.
let's say, I think it
Yeah.
was at 15. You have 15 subspecies of humanoid that aren't related to us, current man.
There
And
was a
ask
point
yourself,
where there was like 14
how's
species of like
15? There's
humanoid.
15 now. It's like, how's that
Yeah,
possible?
yeah. They
How is
all
that
lived at the
possible?
same thing too. Like at the same time period, there was that many
Mhm.
species of humanoids living on. Can you imagine that? That's like
How's it possible
actually
though?
seeing aliens, right? Like
Because you didn't
Yeah.
have
us
modern
now,
man.
like
He sort of
we're
just
so used to
sprung
the
up.
one humanoid species because
Yeah.
Homo sapien is just taken over.
Right.
But
Modern man, Homo sapiens showed up, and then now, well, he's beating these guys into submission and taking all. That's a convenient explanation. Doesn't make it true. That's just like Darwin. The Darwin thing is crazy. If you want me to believe that fish and snails crawled up out of this lake and started becoming,
It's hard to believe that.
started becoming all these creatures and turned into a man, we'd still be seeing it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I believe
Why
in
would that evolutionary
adaptation
change just
theory.
stop? Why would it just stop?
right,
Yeah.
if it works, it's gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, adaptation is different from evolutionary like causes where it's like this amoeba became an organism, became a bigger organism and switched completely. Like, but the thing that kills me is like, what if and like hear me out, this is really obscure. Every species that is on this earth is of a different universe or a different planet, and it just so happens that like we all like ended up here because this is the only inhabitable planet for our species. So like over time, like I guess like the species either lost their intelligence or it just so happens
Think of
that
it like
they're
this.
all different than what we are, so
Think of it as
it's all
like this,
different.
like micro level, right? When you're looking at a microscopic
Mm,
sample of water, right? You're going to see all of the different organisms living and taking over each other and creating a life cycle,
mm.
but only the strongest survive. The weak ones are not going to survive. The ones that have the most beneficial like output to the environment,
Yeah.
because everything's connected, right? Have you ever seen that? Did you in school? Did you go to the IMAX and watch that video? How
Yeah.
they show how every from down to an atom to the most physical thing, like the Eiffel
Mm.
Tower, it's all connected. It takes energy from
It's all
this
built
to
from the
that.
same building
So, like,
blocks.
if we're from a different planet and we were dropped here, obviously things are going to adapt and
Well,
change over
if you want
time.
to, yeah,
And it's kind of
if you
like
want
that
to,
on
if
a
you
larger scale.
if you want to jump into the arena of terraforming, that's exactly what I think they did, whether it be a meteor strike or they did something
Yeah.
else. But the thing that has thrown that on its head now is the recent findings of woolly mammoths.
Thank you, Ron.
Okay, they found baby woolly mammoths and 2 complete mammoths buried in the ice. These things are alongside footprints and hand bones of humans where they should not be. And how did it get there? There's another
Yeah,
thing.
there's just no explanation for
There's
these
no
things.
explanation. Look for the famous hammer they found inside a stone that is something like 23 million years old. It's like, how the hell did a hand tool
Like
get
the fuck?
inside of a stone? The men back then supposedly didn't have hammers. This has a hammer. It looks like a mining hammer. Now, I'm not telling you
Or
that it is, but there's
hieroglyphs
things
have
like
like
that.
helicopters too.
Yeah, there's petroglyphs that show airplanes
Mhm.
and flying vehicles. They show
That's right.
astronauts. Listen, man, listen. Things have been going on since day one.
Mm.
All these pyramids were popping up in the same pyramids in different countries and continents at the
Yeah.
same time,
Yep.
and some
Weird,
of them
right?
have some of the very same looking stone chiseled petroglyphs. They have the same looking stuff. And if you don't think that something was going on, look
And
at
at the
Mars.
same
They've
time,
now said, well, we
Native
discovered.
Americans were drunk.
Yeah, I didn't mean to talk
It's
over you. Sorry.
so like you're funny.
They discovered
funny.
water. They discovered
Yeah.
water on Mars. What's in water?
I mean,
You just said it, Riley. Microorganisms, man.
Literally, it's organisms. It's biology. It's life.
Right. And if you look at the terrain, you can tell that looks to me that there was something there. Something was going on. Did we have to leave? Did we come here from there? Were we brought here from somewhere else? I don't know. It's all a big giant thing. Hi.
Uh-oh. Are we in trouble?
Oh, no, you're not. What's up? I'm on a podcast. Hi, everybody. Stop.
That's so funny.
My dog's going nuts. She's like, who are you talking to?
That's so
the
funny.
Aliens. I get loud sometimes. It's understandable.
Oh, I mean, I get very passionate about this all the time, too.
I do, too.
It's funny.
I do, too. So there's so many things that are unanswered, and it blows up your head, which I find fun. It keeps me amused, I learn something new every day. But that whole difference between us and some of the chimpanzees and monkeys too, how would they have one more chromosome than we, but yet we're the ones driving the cars? That makes no sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's extremely weird.
Yeah, I think
because I guess I believe in there probably was some type of event by I guess this is gonna sound funny. I don't see how there's just a vast emptiness and then two particles of something that maybe are there beforehand, is how I've heard this explained before, run into each other and explode into the Big Bang. I guess the way that I look at it is there is maybe a bigger being, like a god, and maybe it is how everybody thinks it is, and he just snapped everything into existence. But it just so happens we aren't technically native to this earth, like we said. Everything could just once it started, it just has been going the way it is, and then we all ended up here for some odd reason.
I think you're right. I would almost believe some of the Aboriginal tribes and some of the African, areas were probably native here. But then I'm not saying the white man came along. What I'm saying is that other things happened, and there's a lot of missing material that would explain it, and it would explain it in such a fashion that we get it, but it's not there. And
or
I don't know
even
why it's not
dinosaurs are
there.
aliens because they're reptilian and they're gone.
I like where you're going with that spiritualism thing. I am too. I decide that I'm going to call whatever it is. It could be woman, man. I don't know. Could be a stone tree. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's
I
the
gave
best part is it's an almighty being. It's omnipotent. It could be anything.
Anything. And I gave my daughter this explanation. I was like, well, if you're to believe in creationism rather than just the science thing, because where did the science come from? It's the chicken and the egg. And she was very confused by that. And I said, well, it's a paradoxical circle in which
it's the snake eating its own tail.
Yeah,
it's
correct.
ever
Going.
Well,
what came first? Well, I guess the chicken. Okay. Well, where'd the chicken come from? The egg.
Well, an egg.
Where'd the egg come from? The chicken. It's a vicious circle. So what I'm saying is, you're right. I think that we could be, Horton Hears a Who. We could be living in a dust particle that's on somebody's wart on the back of their ass, for all I know. And to us, it's our universe, And
it's funny you say that too, because we read a story once from the Black was it the SCP files, and it was this, it was called Abdomen Planet or something, and it had a whole ecosystem and people living in his abdomen where his entrails were supposed to be.
An entire universe,
but it was an entire universe in his stomach, and you could see it, and he was the omnipotent being, but they were just living in him, and it's
that makes sense though. See, I see what he's getting at, because linear time really has no meaning, because these native cultures eventually started making sundials and ways to track the sun, but they weren't so obsessed with it like we are. We're all wearing watches, and we have to be someplace every minute, every day. And when you listen to natives' oral history of any culture, I love to listen to that, because they just lived until their body ceased to function, which then you find out
their vessels gave out.
Right. then you find out why some of them did live to be way over 100 years old. It's
Mhm.
nuts. They weren't just weren't burdened down as we were with so much worry. But the alien thing is an interesting concept, and I think there's something to it because we're arrogant to sit here and think if you look out there at night when the sky is clear that we're this only thing out here, let alone they just
Yeah.
discovered a planet on the other side of the sun. They already knew about Vulcan, which I find that's funny they named one of them that, but they found this planet and the sun. What was it that it has two suns around on
Yep.
this planet? They have a same orbit like we do. And I
Yep.
ask everybody this question: do you know everything in the universe, including our atoms and everything is spherical? Do you get it? Everything is
Mhm.
round, man.
Yep.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Flat Earth theory.
Why is that? Yeah, flat Earth theory. But why is that? Serious. It's spherical. Everything, planets,
Because
moons,
we're just a
rings.
smaller scale of atoms. You just got to keep getting. It just gets
I'll
bigger
say,
and
yeah,
bigger and
it's
bigger. It's ever expanding.
He's
yeah, it's
right.
the
It's never
He's
infinite,
right.
ending.
the
Yeah,
infinite
that's what it
Russian
is.
doll.
And eventually, maybe
A
they're even
Russian
bouncing
doll.
off each other so fast, and we don't even realize it.
It can blow up your head, but
Because
I
it's
think
so,
all of it,
so much bigger than us.
Well,
everything
we
you
always
ask,
think on such a linear path, and
there
it's
is no
so
such
much
thing.
wider.
That's why I think with paranormal and ghosts, including aliens, that world doesn't exist for them. Because when we ask all the time, do you know what year it is, or whatever, they have no clue, no concept of
Yeah,
time
We
none.
anymore.
noticed that too.
We'll
never
ask
get
that
an
question,
answer.
and we'll be like, they said a number, but it doesn't really correlate. And it's
Nope.
like, well, how the fuck do they know what's going on?
No.
Like they're stuck in wherever they were.
Some of them
Like, I mean, it's
appear
possible, or it's just like they're in a vast whateverness.
right. Some of them appeared to be on the understanding that they just died, yet they died 73 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know, and I find
Yeah,
that
it's the most
fascinating.
intriguing part of all of it. It's like,
All of
And
it
do
is.
they even want to believe they're dead?
I didn't mean to talk your fool ass heads off, but I'm into all this stuff, man.
I know it's seriously like the easiest thing to talk about for us because we are extremely passionate about everything that is
I
like
like to hear that.
just so different. Because growing up, me and Riley both like being friends for over a decade now. Like we would just sit here like we are now with you and just talk. Just just like what if this or what if that
That's
or
how
like
we
I saw this.
That's how we learn from each other. We shoot the
Yeah.
shit and we listen and we learn.
Mhm.
We do.
Yeah, and exactly
Yeah,
that.
I'm
I've
also
learned
like
so
one
much.
of the type of people that like when I become friends with you, I'll be like right away. I'd be like, do you
Tell me
believe in
some
ghosts?
stories.
Do you have any ghost stories? Like I'm like always like, tell me. I
Mine's
believe
like,
you.
where's
I
the
got something
cookies
for
and
you.
milk?
It always like brings me like such joy knowing that like when I tell somebody like my experience is and they're like, "Oh, that's really cool." Like actually, like I don't tell people this many times, but like I feel comfortable telling you this. And it's like that's all I want is for people to understand that it's not a weird thing. Like it's if you're passionate about
It's
anything, like
normal. It's at
promote it, love
this
it,
point, it's
proud.
like probably even more natural than you think it is.
Hmm.
It is. It is. I think
Yeah,
it's
you
more
could be
It's
like,
not
I'm a
so
normal than
cat
everything
guy.
else.
paranormal. It's not so paranormal. That's just the term
Yeah,
we've
I
given
literally
it.
like how you're passionate about World War II. Like I love watching World War II documentaries. I love reading books about it. Like it's all so interesting. Or
Yeah.
like I could be 100% like I love cats and dogs. I'm 100% like like
Animal
an
lover.
animal lover. Well, you're not so cool because of that. Or I'm into anime. Well, you're a geek. Like, come on, like just love it.
Nerd.
I am super nerdy. I literally
I
just got an
Nerd.
anime
I
tattoo.
dress as a Ghostbuster. So
Yeah. And some people would be like, "Dude, look at that guy." And
right.
it's like, "What?"
I used
Like
to be
that's
that. I used to be that
awesome.
kid. I was that kid doing D&D back in the
Yep.
70s and
I still
all
play
that
D&D. I
stuff.
fucking
And we were
love it.
doing
Yeah, I'm
Star
big into
Trek. I was always
D&D.
into Trek,
Yep.
and I'm still
Yeah,
into
like
that
Live
stuff.
Long and
So
Prosper,
it is what it
Stargate
is.
SG-1.
Yeah.
Fucking love it.
Hey, Strange New Worlds, man. That's my thing. That show is
Mhm.
the bomb. But I'm into the ghost thing. I can't, it's part of me because I'm trying to find some answers. And as I've just turned 60 and I'm getting older, there's a definition of my mortality that's there too, that I'm just like, what is really going on? And I think I have more of a faith now than I ever did. If I'm to leave anybody with anything, I would say
Right.
that I'm a little more comfortable knowing that it just does not end with this physical thing. There's more
Mhm.
going on. And I don't think it's too bad to think that grandma's heaven is she's able to watch over us and watch her kids. And I would like to know that I'm not forgotten and that I can watch over my babies and my kids, my grandkids, and maybe they'll join me someday. And when you hear a lot of near-death experiences who are on these podcasts, or you read books about them or listen to podcasts, and doctors who will share these as well, some of the overlapping similarities are proof that you go to there's something else going on, right? You don't just stop. Something else is going on. Might not be
some
your
of it's
time.
all some of it's malarkey. I will say that some of it's very coaxed, like from parents to children talking about it.
Yeah.
But some of the accounts that you'll come across are so genuine, and you're just like, it makes sense.
Yeah, my mom's was not over the top, but she said she didn't see, but she heard familiar voices. Her first time she died of a heart attack. The second one finally got her, but she said that she remembers hearing somebody say, "Eileen, you got to go. It's not your time. You can't be here." And she remembers being like pulled. She felt like it was being pulled, like she was pulled back, and she saw this light, and she felt so loved, and it was beautiful. And then she woke up and she was in the hospital. I don't think that's hallucination, because there's been millions of people reporting that same shit.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I don't think it's
I don't find it unbelievable.
So like my first, like the experience that I have that like sticks in my head is like thinking back, like taught me the most about the paranormal is when I was like 10 years old. My great grandmother died, and God rest her soul, but absolutely beautiful person, so nice. But the entire time I was alive, she was blind, so she never actually seen me with her own eyes, right?
Yeah.
So it was about 2 weeks after she had passed away. I was sitting in our living room. We had like this half wall and a big wraparound couch that went like around and then like came with the half wall, right? And she was standing in a doorway and just like looking at me and just like waved,
just taking it in,
and then just kind of like faded away. But like I told my dad this experience. Remember, I'm a 10-year-old. I said I saw a great grandmother Grover, and he was like, "Really? When?" And I said, "Like the other, like like a couple days ago or whatever."
Like,
and he
not
goes,
possible.
"I'd seen the same thing."
No way.
He's like,
I forgot you told me
"She
the story.
came and visited me as well."
Damn.
And I was like, "Well, what do you think that like that means?" I was already like, as a 10-year-old, I was still like, I believe the paranormal already. And my dad, we lived in a haunted house, and he was like, there is life after death. Something happens. Like, can't explain it. You'll probably never find the answer, but
to experience it.
And
that's funny you share that.
We kind of came up with the like realization that maybe she was like, she wanted to see, her
and it was her
grandchildren,
first
like,
time seeing you,
me, and like see my dad. And,
it's
like,
believable. When my dad died, my kids went through what you went through, and they said we saw Grandpa Holroyd. They never met him, and they were at the hospital outside the door, so they couldn't really see him. But I wanted to make sure that they just weren't having me on, because they knew, how I felt about him and stuff. And
they knew you were into the paranormal.
Correct. And so when I did ask, it's much like your description. They're like, "Well, he walked into your room," which is my podcast room, which is where I got that picture of his face in the window, upstairs window. This is after this. This is a month or so after that, all that went down. And I go, "Okay." And Elise is my youngest. She said, "Yeah, he smiled at us." And Patrick was like, he was wearing a red shirt and jeans and black boots. That's what my dad always wore. He was the biker till the end. He had those black engineer boots,
Yep.
Black biker
I know
boots.
the ones.
Oh yeah.
They're like Harley boots. And he always wore jeans and like a blue or a red t-shirt. And at that point, Elise said, "Yeah, and he had a box rolled up in his sleeve on his arm." And now that's what got me, because they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know about that. That's my dad used to roll his Marlboros up there in his damn sleeves. And she said, "He smiled at us, and he had brown eyes, and he went into your room." They didn't know what color his eyes were. He had brown eyes. I got blue from my mom. And that made me instant, like you, a believer that they just saw my dad in my house. And I had to have a talk with him out loud. Like, there's no more of that, because my wife heard the story and she was like, "Well, if that starts, we're moving." And I laughed, and I'm like, well, if he's a ghost, he's just going to follow us to the next house. It's
Yeah,
not
he's
going
gonna be
not going to
around.
stay here. So, but that still makes it's a wonderment to me that stopped after a while. There were a few more run-ins, but he was trying to make up for lost time. And like with your grandma, maybe there's just time that they want to make up with family. I believe that's the case sometimes too, and I find that more beautiful than I do anything that's frightening. So
Right.
I'm still bent on the fact that there's a lot more good that comes out of this if you just work it the right way than there is that's bad. And mystery with history, man, I was using I hate to burst our good friend Drew's bubble, but I told him, I said, hey, I'm sorry, but I was using that way before you came up with it. That's one of our original SMP logos, which says history with mystery. I said I've been doing that from day one, which is going into these historic places and trying to find what's behind the mystery.
Right.
And I will continue to do that. But that's what I do.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I do a lot of things.
Yeah, I really do think that being being more in tune with the spiritual also like comes in hand with people being closer to like near death experiences, because I think
Right.
that like loosens like the chains that probably hold your spirit down.
Yeah, could be.
I guess that's like a very obscure way of saying it, but yeah, it seems like you're stuck in your mortal vessel, like how I said it earlier, but then you have something where you like, it's like almost you get punched out of yourself and you snap back and you're like, well, it loosened the hold it had.
Yeah,
So like I wonder.
could be.
You never
That's been a
know.
theory. There's a lot of theories within the field that bounce around that too. Why you're at the cemetery instead of catching a ball game. It's like, well, like
Mhm.
you just said, could be just connected to the body. Maybe with cremation, that's settled, and maybe you're not trapped here.
Mhm.
Maybe some people are stuck here because we mourn them so much. It's almost like this invisible thing that keeps them here because
Yeah.
we're not willing to not
Let
let
them
them
go.
go.
Yeah. It's
But
not I
my
bet you
thing
it's
is,
like an extension cord too almost. Like
yeah, it
you
could
have
be
to be
everything.
powered.
It could be all of that, but I refuse to believe that in memory wise that they don't want to be remembered, because of course
Oh
they
yeah.
do. Because read some of the headstones. There's obvious notes and writings on there that tell you, I want to be remembered and here's what I did, you know. So just go up there. I've asked them before too, are you lonely? Are you happy we're here? We get a lot of yeses that they're happy we're there. Would you like us to come back and talk again? Because I don't know if they're just stuck in that one place, man,
Right.
because maybe my conception of a ghost, brain surgery. Everybody have had brain surgery.
I was waiting for
I was waiting for it.
That's the fourth time tonight, probably.
I love it.
So, my conception of that could be wrong too, in a sense where there could be nothing trapping them here and they're not allowed and we can't move around maybe as freely as we thought. But to listen to some of the ghost stories where a son dies in a war in somewhere in Italy and he shows up at his parents' house 35 years later in their house in their bedroom and he's talking to
Buongiorno.
them, how could he go from there to there, right?
Yep.
So maybe that's wrong too. Who knows? It's all a
Yeah.
mystery, man. It's all a mystery.
Yeah.
Life is surrounded in them.
Yeah.
That's why
Man,
we
that's a
do what
good
we do.
T-shirt right there.
It really
Life is
is.
surrounded in mysteries. You got your $1 million T-shirt idea right there, buddy.
Hey,
Looks like we're gonna make a new
copyrighted.
T-shirt idea.
Yeah,
I
I
love
still
it.
think you should do do a paranormal one. We were going to do it called "Stop Staring at My Orbs." That's for the women. That was a women's shirt.
We have one that's got ghosts, like got milk.
Oh
Got
yeah,
ghosts.
But we
yeah.
could definitely do a dirty one.
Yeah.
You could. Ghostbusters do it better in the dark. That's been around for a while.
That's a good one though.
We got these from
Oh, from one of the ghost hunts
Ghost
used to
Hunts
say.
USA, and it says I did it all night with Ghost
Oh
Hunts
no,
USA.
I like that one too.
It's funny.
If you feel touched
God.
in the middle, yeah, if you feel touched at any point in the night, it could be me. I tell that to people. I tell that to people on the tour. It either gets a laugh or people just look at me like, I don't want to go on this tour now.
What? Come again?
Lawyers? What lawyers?
Lawyers?
Don't need lawyers.
Oh my gosh. That is amazing. God, this has been such a blast. I didn't even realize how late it was because I could talk about this all day and like easily.
easily. Yeah, I think it is about time to wrap it up.
I think we both have to go to work early.
Yeah. I'm usually
there went that idea. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm sure I'm gonna get home. My wife is gonna be like, "Hey, fuck, dude."
Thank you so
That's
much,
what mine
Danny,
just did. Like, who are you talking to? It's like, I'm still on this podcast. What are you doing?
I love it.
And coming in here interrupting me.
Because oops.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show, man. We appreciate it.
Patient.
We freaking well, of course.
I mean, for the legend that fought Bigfoot himself.
Yeah. You missed your own intro, but it's okay. It's okay. You are the man who
he one-punched Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That'll live in infamy.
You have me on again, we'll talk about my Bigfoot run-ins, which they tie into Bob Penny's story because he's featured in Weird Michigan book that's been out for years, and it's out here on Silver Lake, and that's where I had a run-in. I saw something and I was like, what in the hell?
Ron, you are a rock star.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Everyone can see and hear you. What? I don't know.
I don't know.
The concept of things are really intriguing. I like Canadian bacon. I do.
Yeah, Ron was on last night. He's part of Weeping Willow with Cassie.
Weeping Willow.
So much fun.
They're freaking awesome people. So shout out Ron. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch that next.
I come in and out and catch some of your guys' stuff when I can, because I'm still trying.
We've been pouring it on thick lately.
We got a lot of interviews coming up. Like we're like, we got Blood Moon Paranormal next week, and then we got Drew show.
Yep.
And then the following week, I don't know. Gosh,
the lineup is insane.
It's a crazy. And then it's Hauntings with Hodge, I'm pretty sure.
We got to come back. I'll come. Well, I'll have you guys on my show and we'll talk about Bigfoot.
Please. And let's try to go Bigfoot hunt together.
Paranormal.
I will tell you this, buddy. Up here in Allegan, I took Crystal out because we're out looking for houses and we're doing dirt roads and stuff. And she was onto this Yellow Motel thing, which I want to tell everybody is a big made up story and a legend. It is not true. Al Capone never had people there. Nothing. None of that is true. Okay. We know the guy that used to work there and he knows the lady that owned it. Listen, it's just a made up story. Beside all that, now I just made everybody cry. In the Allegan Forest area, where I go up to Lake Eli, I took her up there and I know what to look for sign. And there's tree snap, there's tree bending, there's tree tying, which are very evident. There's no mistaking when I believe Squatch is going through deer trails, logging trails, and places where I can't even get my Jeep. Okay. So I showed her some stuff from the road that we could see that is not natural, because 8 feet in the air, when you have tree rub, and the bark is off the tree, there's no damn bear that's 8 foot tall. Okay. Let's all agree on that. We're in Lower Michigan. Let's agree on it. I'm not going to raise my voice. Okay. I got to be quiet. So the other part was these trees were bent over and tied with saplings that are, and then I saw 3 trees in a row and they took saplings that were probably 10-inch in diameter and they're weaved. And this is 50 yards off a logging trail. They're weaved in and out of these trees. And if you watch some of the shows where these guys are serious and, some of the people, I could throw names, that's sign that's their area and you do not go. Don't go in there.
It's the marking of the beast.
You're right. It is. They're like, this is our area, some hunting area or whatever it is. Like, and I'm thinking, this is me. If you want to go Sasquatch hunting, I'll go. But I'm bringing my damn 12-gauge shotgun, okay, with my bandolier and my pistol, because you can tell me as docile as you want, but something that's 8.5 up to 10 foot tall, that's the size of like 20 linebackers.
Yeah.
And you think it's docile. It's
probably realistically like
apex predator.
Like pull your arm off.
Yeah. It's like it's just gonna kiss you and it's gonna love you. It's like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
It's gonna eat your brains.
Eat your brains.
I love it.
Well, then I'm safe. What?
Oh my God.
Well, thanks for having me.
Dan, you are a legend. I love you, man.
Legend. Absolute legend.
I don't know what that means, but I'll take it. Thanks,
you were
guys.
the greatest of all time. You are the wisest of the Gandalfs.
Interesting. That's a good reference. I get that.
I love it.
None shall pass.
You shall not pass. Except for spirits, pass into my camera view, please. Thanks.
Yeah, and his bank account. And don't steal his wallet anymore. Come on.
That too.
Give the guy
That
a break.
too.
Yeah. Robbed by ghosts.
But while you're at it, remember to keep your ears and eyes open for what really goes
bump
in the night. Love you guys. Check out everything Dan has going on, Unrestricted Paranormal, and all the other channels that are under the umbrella that he's got going on, because I honestly don't remember every single one of them because there's a lot. You have so many awesome
Listen, just go to unrestrictedparanormal.com, unrestrictedradio.com, go to ghostarama on Facebook, and if you want to send an email, go to ghostarama22@yahoo.com, and that's it, man. That's it.
Peace.